But for most through Sunday, winds will be light. There'll be plenty of sunshine. Just further outbreaks of patchy rain affecting the far north of Scotland, and very little change through the rest of the afternoon into the evening time, and temperatures well above average, looking at 17, 18, 19, possibly 20 Celsius in the best of the sunshine. Somewhere across North Wales into northwest England could reach that top spot. On Monday, it's all changed. A weather system's moving southwards, introducing northerly winds and much colder air across Scotland. This slowly pushes southwards through Monday and into Tuesday, introducing that colder air. But southern parts holding on to that warm air for one day more, so 16, 17 Celsius possible, then turning colder for all from Tuesday.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Nigel Farage breaks his silence on the row ripping through Reform UK.
He admits the feud has dented any sense of unity within the party.
Well, it comes as insiders say Rupert Lowe is the biggest threat to Nigel Farage. So can the party recover?
So, following the Farage fallout, we're asking, is Nigel Farage fit to lead Reform?
Now, another week of record border crossings and a warning today as a Palestinian asylum seeker who called on God to kill all Jews is picked up by Border Force crossing the Channel on Thursday. The Home Office can't confirm whether or not he's been arrested.
We'll be talking to the Israeli MP Sharon Haskell just after 8 this morning about this latest threat facing British Jews, as well as why the BBC, she says, should be investigated.
A wake-up call for Whitehall reports the government is set to introduce performance-related pay and exit processes for poor performers in the civil service.
The King's message to the Commonwealth. The monarch praises its ability to bring people together in uncertain times.
Britain is amongst those hardest hit by the pandemic. 5 years since the COVID-19 outbreak, new analysis shows the UK has one of the worst economic bounce backs.
And who will be crowned the King or Queen of Crofts? It's the final day of the world's largest dog show.
And it's one of our greatest traditions, tea. We're going to be hearing in about 10-15 minutes how it's being used to bridge the diplomatic ties across the Atlantic and celebrate the special relationship.
Good morning. A stunning Six Nations victory for France in Ireland came at a cost with an injury to their best player, Antoine Dupont, with England on standby to take advantage at Twickenham today when they face Italy. And in the Premier League, Liverpool moved 16 points clear at the top, and Nottingham Forest boosted their Champions League hopes with victory over Manchester City.
Good morning. The sun will be shining once again today for most of us, but a change is on the way next week, turning much colder. Find out all the details a little later.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I'm baffled as to how tea can help the special relationship between America and Britain.
Well, historically, tea was always a bit of a problem, wasn't it, with the Americans?
They can't. Well, yeah, historically it was. But they can't make tea.
No, they cannot make tea. It drives you nuts when you go to the States because you ask for tea, you ask for boiling water, and they bring it. It boiled a couple of minutes ago, and then they bring it, and they expect you to, and then they just stick a tea bag in a cup. With non-boiling water.
They expect you to do the rest. You get this pee-willy nonsense.
Yeah, horrible. It is, yeah.
Mind you, it's
a good brand, actually.
It's as bad across Europe.
Yes, it is.
It
You
is,
can't get a decent cup of tea in Europe.
You have to take a travel kettle with you, don't you?
My mum went
little
to
travel
the
kettles.
Vatican in about 1984. I remember ringing home and saying we might have to come home early because we can't get decent cup of tea. Seriously,
It is very important. If it's part of your morning ritual, as I'm sure it probably is for anyone watching at the moment, you know, the first thing you do is have a nice cup of tea.
Yeah.
If it's part of your morning ritual, then it's that important. And you start the day badly if you don't start with a decent cup of tea.
Started warming the pot and everything, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm always slightly surprised at is I drink tea here and you ask, obviously we have someone to make it for us because we can't just wander out of the studio. I say, can I have a cup of tea? And it turns up, Alex, if you're watching, in about 90 seconds. This cup of tea turns up. But it's actually not bad.
Ah, good.
So I don't know how it's being brewed so quickly.
Well,
at home, I leave it for a good 5 minutes.
No, but that's because we get boiling water out of one of those cooker-type things, don't we? So it's already boiling, so that's quick. You don't have to wait for the kettle to boil.
But it's not brewing.
OK.
Do you want me to pass on my compliments to the master tea maker?
Well,
just ask him how he does it. That's good. But, I mean, that's true. I mean, do you bother anymore with a teapot? You say you do.
I do, but it's almost like trends create counter-trends, don't they? Most people don't do it. No. So I've decided to do it.
I see.
I'm quite proud of my teapot.
It is better done in a teapot and poured from a teapot, isn't it?
Just warming the cups as well.
Yeah, just doing it in the mug doesn't have
It's not quite the same, but I do. It's out of laziness, really.
I used to go to a football club, I think it was Wimbledon a few years ago, and they had a tea urn, And the
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
but
yes.
He used to pour it out with. He used to put the milk in it as well. So, it'd be ready-made tea. Pour it out into a cup.
Yeah.
Reg, his name was. Yeah, nice bloke.
What do they call this? A special. Yes. There's a special. It's a samovar. That's it, isn't it? Tea samovar. One of those beautiful things you'd have on a bureau or something, or a sideboard in your dining room in the olden days, and it would always be boiling up for a nice cup of tea.
Nice tea on tap. Very nice. Anyway, we better crack on with the proper stuff this morning, because Nigel Farage has broken his silence on the row that's engulfed Reform UK following the expulsion of the MP Rupert Lowe.
Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, Nigel Farage claims the last election shows the public don't like parties that engage in constant infighting. Well, I think we all know that by now, don't we? And he's vowed to ensure all party representatives behave responsibly.
Well, it follows allegations of bullying and physical violence by Rupert Lowe, allegations he strongly denies.
What followed after that, of course, was public criticism of the party's leadership by the MP for Great Yarmouth, which Nigel Farage claims has dented the sense of unity.
Let's talk to political commentator Duncan Barks. Morning to you, Duncan.
Morning all.
Storm in a teacup.
Oh, big teacup.
Yeah.
Big teacup. So the timeline to this, on Thursday of last week, an interview appeared with Rupert Lowe, with Andrew Pearce of this parish, and Rupert Lowe branded Nigel Farage as a messiah-like figure. And that interview caused quite a few ripples. Now, there's been quite a few whispers around Westminster for the last few months that all is not been happy in the Reform camp with some of these relationships. And you've got to remember, particularly in the case of Rupert Lowe, he's a self-made businessman, a former chair of Southampton Football Club. He's his own man in many ways. So there's a strong personality there. And, of course, we know Nigel Farage is a strong personality as well. So this interview was kind of interesting, and then it triggered this wave of, I suppose, speculation that Rupert wasn't necessarily happy with Nigel as leader, and questioned his capabilities as being a future Prime Minister. Then on Friday, we have this situation that unfurled quite quickly on Friday evening, where you had Reform issuing a statement talking about Rupert Lowe, various allegations about bullying behaviour, threats of physical violence towards Reform's chairman, Zia Youssef. Lowe completely, rejects all of these allegations. And over the last 24 hours, this has been played out. You mentioned the Telegraph. So Nigel Farage has a piece in today's Sunday Telegraph stating why he's done what he's done, because they've suspended the whip for Rupert Lowe, now sits as an independent MP. Rupert Lowe's got also a piece in the Telegraph as well. And if you look at X, formerly known as Twitter, this has been played out over the last 24 hours. You've got Rupert Lowe, who has repeatedly put forward his case. He does it in his Telegraph column, saying, Nigel, let's meet for dinner to sort this out. I've tried various attempts for you and I to talk. He's done it again on social media in the last 36 hours. It's a bit unedifying, to be honest with you, to see some of this stuff playing out on social media. You also have Lee Anderson, who's a Reform MP for Ashfield and also the Chief Whip, put a statement on social media. Rupert Lowe responded saying this is a lie. So if you're into your politics, it's a popcorn kind of moment. You're just watching this stuff play out. And I think the thing that will concern most Reform supporters or voters, and I talk to people outside of the Westminster bubble, and they say to me, I support Reform because they're not Conservative, they're not Labour, we need something different. And, people are fiercely passionate about Reform, and they see this. And I think this morning there'll be some Reform supporters with their head in their hands thinking, lads, you just need to sort this out because we need you to be united, because, as you said, people do not vote for divided parties.
Well, you see, that's the problem, isn't it? Nigel Farage can say all he wants in the front page of the Telegraph, saying it's denting our sense of unity, all of this basically washing dirty laundry in public. But they're still doing it. They're all at it now.
They're still doing it.
They're all wanting their say, aren't they?
I kind of wish, from a social media perspective, it's just like, lads, just put the phone down for like 12 hours and do yourself a favour. So it'll be fascinating to see how this plays out. There's a lot of speculation. Again, the Telegraph have got a cracking piece. They've spoken to various sources close to Rupert Lowe, close to Nigel Farage. And the view from the Farage camp is there's Lowe kind of like he will not be invited back into the party, though some people say, there might be a way of meeting and having some kind of compromise. But I think the most damaging thing is that it's been allowed to get to this stage. I mean, look, we all know that politicians have egos, right? You know, you have to have quite a big ego to be a politician. So the fact that some of these reports are saying they've not actually spoken for months is quite concerning.
Yeah, it is. Can I ask you about what's on the Mail on Sunday this morning?
You can.
There's been quite an influx, 1,600, I think, illegal crossings into the UK in the last week or so. And now one of these who crossed up and was picked up by Border Force on Thursday, a guy called Abu Wadi from Gaza, they've uncovered all this footage of him saying that all Jews must die.
Yep.
He's in the UK.
Yep.
We don't know where he is.
No idea.
Could be on the streets.
Yep.
No indication he's been arrested.
No.
I mean, this is worrying.
It's concerning, and you know, this is not about demonising people who come to this country, but what it does do is it breaks into this whole debate about, do we know who's coming here, what is their background, and what are their motives? And what we find here in today's Mail on Sunday piece, and you don't have to be, you know, a rocket scientist to do this, they checked out his social media, Facebook, and they find all kinds of videos, including statements saying slaughter to all Jews, pictures of him posing with an AK-47 machine gun. And as you say, Stephen, Kent Police say they're unaware of any arrests related to the case. The Home Office, and, you know, we pay the Home Office vast amounts of money to keep an eye on people like this, refused to say last night, you know, whether or not they were aware of his militant background. So you kind of find yourself thinking, you know, it's such a hot topic, the boats crossing the channel and people coming to this country, and yet it takes a national newspaper to uncover the fact that one of these people is someone who is massively opposed to the destruction of Israel, but we don't know where he is.
Yeah, but the other thing is you can't help but look at it and think he can't be the only one.
No.
This is just one that the press has managed to find out about. He probably isn't the only one. And then you have to ask, is he just walking around our streets free? Has he been arrested? We don't know, because the Home Office won't tell us. And why won't the Home Office tell us?
Because I think that either they don't know or they're scared of the reaction. And this is part of the problem, because we know that there is, understandably, an issue in this country where we have people arriving illegally to this country, and that's what you're doing if you're crossing the channel, and people have massive amounts of concerns about this. And maybe we'll touch on the story in the Express in a second about how much money's been spent on people who are coming to this country. But you have these people arriving and you do not know what their background is. And this government seems to have a bit of a track record of kind of like pulling down the shutters and going, oh, well, we've got nothing to say, we're going to refuse to comment on this. And actually what the people of this country want is they actually want some leadership. They want the Home Office to go, we know who this bloke is, and police in Kent have arrested him.
But it's not just this government, it was the last government too.
All governments.
We never got any transparency from them at all.
Because I think they're scared to tackle the issue head on. Because if you get some transparency, it only takes then a couple of newspapers, the usual suspects go, oh, hang on a second, you're demonising these people for their political views. Well, in my world, if someone's pictured brandishing an AK-47 and shouting, let's kill all the Jews, they're not coming to this country for tea and buns, are they?
No. All right, Duncan, thank you. Well, GB News has contacted the Home Office for comment. They've given us a statement in which they say, we are committed to ending small boat crossings which undermine our border security and restoring order to the asylum system to ensure the rules are respected and enforced. While it is a long-standing rule that we never comment on individual cases or operational matters, the British public can be reassured that we will take all steps necessary at all times to protect the nation's security.
And they think that's going to be reassuring. I find that astonishing.
Well, if I was a British Jew, which I'm not, but if I was a British Jew, this would really concern me.
Yes, it would really upset you, wouldn't it? Of course it would.
I mean, it's not right, is it?
No.
It just isn't. How can it be right?
How can we be reassured simply by the Home Office saying we can't tell you anything, but let's hope that's reassuring? It's not good enough, is it?
Right, it's 14 minutes past 6. Also today, a pro-Palestine protester who scaled the Elizabeth Tower, Big Ben, really, to you and me, has been removed after a 16-hour standoff with emergency services. Police alerted just before 7:30 yesterday morning. The Metropolitan Police deployed negotiators, emergency crews and a cherry picker to urge him to come down. But she didn't do till gone midnight. He's been arrested now.
Bereaved families and communities across the UK are uniting for a nationwide day of reflection to mark 5 years since the COVID-19 pandemic began in 2020. Hundreds of events will honour those who lost their lives, thank the frontline workers and recognise sacrifices made during the pandemic. The bereaved will walk along the National COVID Memorial Wall in London, followed by a ceremony and a minute's silence, and flowers being cast from Lambeth Bridge.
In his Commonwealth Day address, the King will praise the family of nations for uniting in friendship during uncertain times. Speaking at Westminster Abbey tomorrow, King Charles will highlight the Commonwealth's enduring strength in bringing people together globally. Tomorrow he'll also launch the 18th official Commonwealth Games relay for the 2026 Glasgow Games. It will begin with the monarch handing the baton to Sir Chris Hoy. I didn't know we had a COVID National Memorial
No,
Wall.
did I? No, didn't know that at all.
Which seems a little bit odd, doesn't it?
Apparently it's on the South Bank by St Thomas's Hospital, I think.
Oh.
But
No, well.
I can't get over the fact that it's 5 years
I know.
already.
It's flown by, hasn't it?
It has.
Very, very quickly.
I remember during lockdown, during the pandemic, thinking, how did it come to this? What a weird thing to be going through.
It was very odd, wasn't it?
And then it was over, and then we're all expected to get on with our lives as
It's
though it
amazing
never
how
happened.
you adjust, though. Things like queuing up to get in the supermarket.
Yeah, standing,
All that sort of thing.
apart from each other, and very odd.
Anyway, back to normal now.
Well,
Apart from I
yes.
still see people walking about with masks on, but with their nose popping out the top, which makes it
That's
totally
silly.
pointless.
Yeah.
Still see that.
I think some people rather liked wearing masks. It gives them anonymity.
Yeah, maybe.
You still feel like wearing one occasionally on busy trains or aeroplanes sometimes. If there's somebody very near you coughing like crazy, you think, oh, I wish I'd had my mask with me.
They hurt my ears.
Yeah, they do. I never liked them, but...
Right, now, it's one of our greatest traditions, tea. We do get through quite a lot of tea. But now it's being used as a diplomatic tool to celebrate the special relationship between the UK and the United States.
Well, apparently Number 10 has commissioned British tea makers Tregothon, based in Cornwall, to create a new special blend combing tea leaves from Hawaii, South Carolina... combining, I think, tea leaves from Hawaii, South Carolina, and a special tree planted by Prince Philip in Cornwall.
Well, the new blend is designed to bridge the Atlantic one sip at a time.
So joining us now from the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas, where the tea has been launched, is tea maker Jonathan Jones. Hello there, Jonathan. A very good morning to you, or whatever time of day it is to you. Good day.
Good morning. Yes, it is a good day.
Yeah. So tell us about the tea. I mean, you've got it there, haven't you? I mean, what does it taste like?
I'm right here.
Aha.
Oh, well, it's a breakfast tea, appropriate for this time of day. And this is a blend for the first time in history of UK and US grown tea leaves. And a lot of people are surprised that the UK grows tea, first of all, but we've been doing it for about 15 to 20 years. And in the US, they've been growing it in South Carolina, a garden called Charleston, for almost 100 years. And more recently, the US has really got excited about tea, and they're growing it in Hawaii and up the West Coast. There's quite a few gardens now popping up growing our national drink, and hopefully it will become the US national drink. So this is a blend of American and British leaves to make what we call a special tea. And only an hour ago, this was being presented to the First Lady of Texas, a delightful lady who actually works in that house and behind, you can see behind me. But incredible that I didn't even know that each state had its own First Lady, and she was a really keen tea drinker. And every month they get together and taste teas, and I learned a lot today about tea drinking in America, including that the US president hands over to the new incoming president in the White House over a cup of tea. Who knew that? And that's a long-standing tradition in America. So it's nice to see that the British national obsession with tea is spreading across the Atlantic, and I hope this will help with that.
Yes, but the irony, of course, Jonathan, is Americans can't make tea.
Well, there's a lot of irony in this. I also learned that the Americans spend more per person on tea than the British do, and they're more open to experiment with tea. And I write a weekly tea column for Country Life magazine, which turns out to be the world's first tea column. And as part of the research into that, I find all kinds of really interesting facts that, the tea consumption in America is going up. They're more willing to experiment on different kinds of tea. And it's a bit of a myth that they don't make good tea, because there's the iced tea and the teas that aren't so popular yet in the UK, but they are more willing to buy really high quality tea and make it at a lower temperature. Whereas in the UK, we think, we've got to make it with boiling water, and that's okay for breakfast tea. But for some of the oolongs and the really exciting teas that kind of compete with coffee, it's better to lower the temperature and borrow some of the techniques, if you like, that we've learned from coffee. To take your time, lower the temperature, and that is good for the best quality tea. So it's a funny kind of way. I think you'll see Americans in tea houses that we haven't got in the UK.
Of course, that was always the way that you met with people.
So we don't have chains of tea houses, really.
Can I just ask you, what's it called, that particular tea?
I think.
Maybe you can't hear me, but what's it called? And is it a loose leaf tea, or is it in bags?
Both. This is the first one, but it's going to be, this one's in pyramids, actually. So it's loose leaf, but in these large pyramids. But we'll also be offering it as a loose tea. And it's called special tea, like a special relationship tea. But it's really, in America, they call this category of tea specialty. So it's a play on words, really. But it's been really well received. It's the first day that we've had people tasting it. And the South by Southwest Festival is a huge venue. So it's been great fun to talk to real American tea drinkers and teach them a thing or two about how we enjoy this drink in the UK.
Well, you know I drink a lot of tea, Jonathan, so send some over and I shall give you my verdict.
Good to try it.
Good to talk to you, thank you.
Definitely try some, thanks.
I mean, I do love a tea.
Yes. Yes, I know. I used to love tea, and I've gone off it now.
You have gone right off it. I've never known you have a cup of tea.
No, I know. I used to love tea. It was very important, but now coffee's sort of slightly taken over. Actually, I'm not even very keen on coffee. I don't know what drink. I need to embrace a new drink. What do you recommend?
Yeah, maybe a herbal tea, a rhubarb or something.
Yes, or one of those just fruity teas. I mean, they're not really tea, are they? They're can't think what's the word if you're not a tea. You're a
infusion.
That's it. It's an infusion. But maybe I need to go for that. Anyway, while you ruminate upon making a cup of tea, how about catching up with the weather now with Craig Snell?
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, today, most of us will see another fine and sunny day, and in the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm for the time of year. It's not going to be everywhere, though. The very far north of Scotland, we continue with some cloud and rain here, and also very down towards the very far southwest, could just see a few showery outbreaks of rain from time to time. But for a lot of the UK, lots of sunshine around, and in the sunshine, temperatures will really respond quite widely into the high teens across much of England and Wales, and we could see a few spots reaching 20 degrees, that's 68 in Fahrenheit. As we move into the evening, this band of cloud and rain across the far north of Scotland will gradually begin to sink a little bit further southwards, but for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, it will be a very fine end to the day with some late sunshine. Much of England and Wales also very similar, fine end to the weekend to come. Really the exceptions are going to be down towards the very far southwest of England, where again we could just see a few spots of rain to end Sunday. So moving into the nighttime period, that band of rain across Scotland will continue to sink its way a little bit further south. Behind it, much colder air and also quite a brisk breeze developing. But for a lot of the UK, it's going to be a fairly quiet night. Could see some mist and fog form, especially along some North Sea coasts, and in the countryside, it will turn pretty chilly as we start Monday morning. But for a lot of England and Wales, we do start the day fairly bright once any early mist and fog clears, but cloud will begin to bubble up up quite widely across the UK during the course of Monday, so much more cloud in the sky compared to the weekend. That band of rain across Scotland will trek its way into parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England as the afternoon goes on. Behind it, much colder. Temperatures really struggling across Scotland, but still reaching the mid-teens across much of England and Wales.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's 6:25, and it is Lent, of course. And during this time of Lent, we're bringing you daily reflections from ministers around the United Kingdom.
Hello, my name is Marjorie and I am a minister in the north of England. In Britain and in the church calendar, we are now entering the period traditionally known as Lent, a period when the rhythm changes for 40 days before Easter Sunday. Its origins are found in the Old Testament story of the children of Israel in the wilderness for 40 years, and then the parallel story in the Gospels of Jesus in the wilderness for 40 days, preparing his heart and soul for his ministry that was about to begin. So what do we mean by the term wilderness? A definition might be an uncivilized place which lacks the comfort for favourable living, human living. Think of the TV programme Survivor as an example. We often think of the wilderness as a hard time, a desert, something we might want to avoid. But these days, many people intentionally go into a wilderness as a spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental exercise. Think of going into rehab, for example, following an addiction. You suddenly have no phone, no access to alcohol, a break with your relationships. Or maybe it's going to spend a week in a retreat in a monastery as a spiritual exercise. Many people still intentionally practice the discipline of Lent. They choose to change their rhythm of life or eating patterns and to practice simplicity, detoxing from familiar comforts and distractions. It can be a time when you ask the big questions of life. Who am I? Why am I here? Why is life worth living? Or maybe it's how am I doing?
Big question. Who am I? What am I doing here?
Well, we ask that every morning, don't we?
Yeah, we do, yes, funnily enough. Yeah, but still is a big question.
Yeah, right now, still to come for you. Here's a big question. Who's going to be crowned top dog at Crufts? We'll tell you more in a moment.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tom Pickup, host of the Really 007 podcast. Hello, Tom. Thank you very much for joining. I've just been singing Live and Let Die to myself for some random reason. So what's going on here, then? Is Bond going to be changed forever? I mean, Barbara Broccoli was pretty hands-on and tough with what happened to that.
Yeah, you've got to think that this goes back to 1962 when it all started with Sean Connery and Dr. No. Her father, Cubby Broccoli, got the film rights and began the franchise and the movie character we all know as James Bond. So it's a big change. It was always going to come to an end eventually. Barbara took over pretty much when her father died, before GoldenEye, when Pierce Brosnan was the new Bond. But she's really had all the control with her half-brother, Michael G. Wilson, who's the other producer on Eon, since then, since 95, really. And they didn't cast Pierce Brosnan themselves. That was Cubby's casting. Their real casting was Daniel Craig. And I think now that that chapter has come to an end, and whether you liked it or not, it had a very definite ending, maybe that's been part of the reason where they think they'd rather spend their time in retirement doing something else. It's time to pass it on. And they've got a ready-made partner already in Amazon.
Is it going to get a little bit woke, though, Tom?
I've no idea, but all I know is that Jeff Bezos obviously is head of Amazon. He's already put a tweet up or on X saying, "Who do you want as the new James Bond?"
Oh, okay.
So he's already including the fans, which I suppose is a good thing. Whether or not we'll have a say, we don't know. But I think what it'll be is what people want, what people on the outside see as James Bond, not necessarily super fans like me.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, we want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British Giveaway, where you can win £17,777 in tax-free cash. But oh no, that's not all. You'll also win not one, but two very big deal designer watches and a lovely designer bag, which I've got my eyes on, but doesn't help me. If you want to look and feel the part this spring, here's how you take part.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Today's the last day of Crufts. I was watching it on the telly yesterday afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
It was the agility classes.
Oh, you like that's your favourite?
It was lovely to watch. I know some people don't approve of Crufts, but I don't see how you could disapprove of the agility thing, because those dogs absolutely love what they're doing. And some of them are very quick indeed. In fact, it was an English one that won.
Oh.
Because I didn't realise that people come from all over the world to take part in Crufts. Anyway, it's like I said, it's the last day, which means that Best in Show, the big deal dog, is crowned King of Crufts today, or Queen, I suppose. 24,000 dogs take part. Only one, though, can be crowned top dog. I wonder what breed it'll be. Let's join our West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson, who's got all the details for us.
In front of us now, over the IAMs and the spread.
Days of fierce competition in every shape and size. This year, more than 24,000 dogs from 223 different breeds have all been gunning for Best in Show, but only one can be the winner, as Bill Lambert from the Kennel Club explains.
Best in Show is the culmination of 4 days of competition at Crufts, where the 20,000 dogs that are here to be entered in the show actually get whittled down to the final 7. The dog that wins is that dog that's got that little bit extra, that bit of star quality, that bit of personality that really stands out. Anyone that competes at Crufts, it's the very best coming together, and it's the one show that everyone wants to win.
Best in Show has been awarded for 86 years, and last year the Australian Shepherd Viking took the top prize. Co-owner Melanie Raymond describes what it was like to win.
Amazing. It's something we always dream of winning, and he's just still to a show dog and he just loves it. It's not just a one-show wonder, it's a continual life plan. They're athletes, these dogs, so they have to be, have to go through a regime of being well looked after and cared for.
This year's competition will once again be tough, with Jack Russell Anna stealing the show on Thursday night to make it through to the final 7.
There's going to be a huge cheer. The Jack Russell Terrier has taken the Terrier.
What a popular
over 130,000 visitors at Crufts this year, its popularity remains strong. But what is it that keeps people coming back?
As someone who loves dogs, it's just the place to be, really, isn't it?
If it's to do with dogs, it's here and it's fabulous.
It's an amazing way to really show all the different quirkinesses of all the different types of breed that you wouldn't even dream of. She's a Quaker Honja, and you won't come across that just in your normal neighbourhood.
Everyone that we have met, I mean, whether it's groomers or people showing or just people here for a day out, they've been so lovely, so complimentary as well for us, for the treats, and to see the dogs as well.
It's the biggest dog show in the world, that's definitely. And it's, for me, it's a way of showing how you can work your dog, because that's all started. We started to work the dogs and they do a good job for us.
The time for final touches is over. Who can deliver a winning performance? At Best in Show tonight, there can only be one top dog. Jack Carson, GB News, Birmingham.
Oh, God, sweetie.
Well, lovely.
But it smells in there, though.
I bet it really does, yeah. For anyone with an allergy to dogs, and I've got an allergy to dogs, I'd have to be so tanked up on antihistamines just to go there. But still, I mean, it did look wonderful.
Oh, dear me. Right, still to come. Aidan's got all the sport.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
I watched the video yesterday with Meghan Markle announcing this relaunch. What did you make of the video?
It's constantly this rebranding thing that's going on, which is quite interesting. We've had different kind of, way back to Sussex Royal at the very beginning. Here we've now got this new lifestyle series that's coming out. Obviously, she's got this new brand that's going to go alongside it. It's very difficult because royals, as we've said many, many times before, this is not something royals typically kind of do. And obviously these are no longer, if you like, working members of the royal family, but still, Prince Harry, as I keep saying, is a senior member of the royal family. So it's quite a kind of uncharted territory that they're going into. And as I said, this is a bit of a disaster because everything they seem to kind of do when it comes to branding, it just doesn't seem to work.
They seem to really be struggling to find their purpose in the US. Do you think that's fair? I mean, Prince Harry, of course, has got the Invictus Games, which is just the most wonderful thing that he has set up. But it appears that they're not obviously part of the royal family anymore in terms of working royals. They're not senior working royals, but not able to make it in the business world yet either.
You're right, Elliot. I think the Invictus Games is definitely the kind of saving grace. That's the thing that everybody kind of admires and respects them for. But then it's when they keep going back into this kind of celebrity branded lifestyle. I don't think anyone's really that hugely interested. As you said, in the States, you kind of hear people are for them, people are against them. I think most people would rather that they went kind of doing this. I think we've said this so many times before that, as members of the royal family, they should continue down that line and going into this kind of business world. It just, I think I'm right in saying historically with royals and kind of business, it doesn't really work.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Aidan's here with all the sport. Good morning.
Good morning to you both.
Six Nations.
Wonderful day of action yesterday.
Well, something, wasn't it?
Well, it was. I mean, look, I sat here yesterday saying that I was confident Ireland would go ahead and reaffirm their credentials and take another step towards winning not just the Grand Slam. They won the Triple Crown last week, but also the the Six Nations. I felt they were primed to do it for the third time in a row. But
why were you wrong?
I was, though. I was. I mean, but that's the beauty. I like that because that means it's not predictable.
Yeah.
And it means we're seeing competition and we're seeing a good level of competitive play between all these top sides, and that's what, especially the top two sides in the tournament, France and Ireland. But consider the scale of what they achieved. I mean, they were leading at half time, but then Ireland turned things round early in the second half, and then France just rattled off 34 unanswered points to take the game, 42-27. It didn't come, it wasn't completely plain sailing because it came at a cost. Their top player, believed to be the best player in the world, Antoine Dupont, suffered a bad injury, actually, which his coach described as reprehensible. Ty Burn, the Ireland player, sort of really injured the scrum half at the ruck. And, it was a moment of controversy in an otherwise outstanding game. But that leaves France now in the box seat as they leave Dublin. I think they'll go on... Well, I've said this before, haven't I? I think they'll go on and win the Grand Slam... not the Grand Slam, the Six Nations next week. They face Scotland at home. All three teams play on the same day. But... we must mention Scotland as well. They were plain sailing against Wales, and Wales came back at them late, just as they did against Ireland a few weeks ago. So there is sign that Wales have got something in them, but they keep losing games. That's another one added to the streak. I think it's 16 or 17 in a row now. And we have to consider that England today can do their utmost to try and make things difficult for France next week. I have a list of permutations that could see England win the Six Nations now. I've been writing them down. Well, I might have borrowed them from the Mail on Sunday, actually. but England must beat Italy today with a bonus point. That's
England
3
must
o'clock.
beat Italy today.
With a bonus point.
Okay.
So that means they have to score 4 or more tries en route to victory. It's 3 o'clock today at the Allianz Stadium in Twickenham, of course. They must also beat Wales with a bonus point next week. And then if France beats Scotland without a bonus point, England would need a heavy win to overhaul France's superior points advantage. Are you still with me?
Well, I think so.
You're not. You don't. Doesn't seem like you are. But don't worry. I'm going to.
But just England has got to win everything.
Yeah, they have, and then it comes into points. And then if having said that, let's keep it simple. If France lose next week and England win, then England can go ahead and win the Six Nations, which would be absolutely extraordinary. But they've got to beat Italy today as well.
And Scotland's got to beat France.
They have indeed, yeah. They have indeed. I mean, that's up. And they're all decent size.
But all of that's possible, I suppose.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I mean, as I say, Wales. They've lost all their matches. They look as if they're going to get the wooden spoon, but they've got, as I say, they showed some life yesterday. They really did.
Good.
Against Scotland, as they did against Ireland the other week. So they've got some pride. They've got an interim coach there. Who knows what can be achieved? But as I say, at least it's open going into the final weekend. All the games, as I say, kick off on Saturday at the same time. And so we'll see. We'll just have to see what happens. And I think that's a wonderful thing about sport. You go into the final round of matches with a degree of uncertainty, and that's what we want.
Yeah, well, that's quite nice.
That's what you watch, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about Manchester City now?
10 finals to avoid disaster. You don't often hear Pep Guardiola talking like this, but they lost yesterday at Nottingham Forest. They conceded a goal with 7 minutes to go. So Forest and City are in the top 4, going for Champions League. City looking vulnerable now, though, because Chelsea play today. They haven't got a lot of form, Chelsea, but they're playing Leicester at home today. So if they win that, they'll go into the top 4. City drop out. Now, they've lost 9... City, have lost 9 matches in a season for the first time since Guardiola took over in 2016. That's the standard he's reached at that club. But shining light on Nottingham Forest, relegation candidates in the last couple of years, looked for all the world as if it was going to be the same story this season. They are 3rd in the league, and we're in March. And it's outstanding. And they did it the hard way yesterday. They were defended well. They competed like lions, and then they got the goal 7 minutes from time, keeping a clean sheet against Man City, which not many teams tend to do. And then we've got some exciting games today. Your favourites, Bournemouth, are in action at Tottenham at 2 o'clock.
Oh, right.
And we've of course got Manchester United and Arsenal, and Liverpool went 16 points clear yesterday with a 3-1 win over Southampton.
Lovely stuff. Aidan, we'll see you later on. Thank you very much indeed.
And if you're in search of some winter sun, here's where to go for the hot spots in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Low pressure still dominates western parts of the Mediterranean. Outbreaks of showers, heavy rain, some strong winds as well. Temperatures a little below average for the time of year. Through Monday, showers across the west, some longer spells of rain, Spain and Portugal there. Showers across into Italy, temperatures in the mid-teens. But the best of the dry weather across Greece, across into Turkey as well. Plenty of sunny spells here. And the outlook for is it to improve a little with temperatures rising too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
I ended up being hospitalised, and I was diagnosed with it within the first few days of being in hospital. I was in hospital for 2 months, and I came out about 13 months ago, something like that. And I realised that there are people that aren't as lucky as me that don't have that platform to be able to talk about it, bring it out in the public, and deal with the stigma, because there is still a stigma.
A lot of people don't really know what bipolar is. So in you, Heston, how did it manifest itself?
It's funny because before the diagnosis, I mean, everything, many things, from thinking the TV was talking to me to hallucinating stuff. The downside is suicidal thoughts, which seemed normal at the time. The upside is the thing there's grandiosity, somewhere between Superman and Jesus Christ. Wow. Save the world, love everybody, everything's fantastic. And then it comes crashing down. It's a bit like a toddler, you know, an overexcited child. And when a kid gets overexcited, and then something happens, and then they start crying.
Wow. So massive highs, big lows.
Yeah, but I thought everything was normal. It's only now that I've come out the other side, so to speak, that I look back and can see some of the character traits. I mean, my patience levels were almost non-existent before. I'm a lot more patient. I'm talking much slower. I was talking very quickly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
6:47, good morning. Let's see what's making the papers this morning. With the journalist Andy Jones and former Conservative advisor Jennifer Powers. Welcome both.
Welcome.
Andy, let's kick off with the Sunday Telegraph, should we? And Nigel Farage talking about these splits in his party.
Yeah, and usually for a Sunday paper, they've got both sides of the story. They've got Farage and they've got Rupert Lowe, and they're almost punching Judy about where they are on their position. So if we don't already know, Rupert Lowe is been kicked out of the Reform Party. He's one of the most popular, most visible figures behind Nigel Farage. Chronology of events: Rupert Lowe criticised the leadership a few weeks ago, saying they lacked a bit of direction, they lacked policy. And then suddenly these stories have come out, you know, whether they've been leaked. But tactically, that's certainly the accusation from Rupert Lowe, who denies all charges, that he was, misogynistic remarks towards female staff, and that he'd threatened on more than one occasion the Reform Party Reform Party chairman Zia Youssef. Rupert Lowe absolutely denies all these things, but Farage has written a comment piece, and Rupert Lowe's replied himself on Telegraph Online. He said he had to kick Rupert Lowe out of the party to save the party, keep the unity. But look, I mean...
well, if there are allegations are made, they've got to be investigated.
Well, yes, they investigate, but kicking somebody out of the party before they've necessarily been... The investigations have been...
I suppose that's the point, because he hadn't been found guilty of anything at this stage.
No, but there's obviously a lot of animosity has been building up over some time.
Yeah, quite. Rupert Lowe's become more and more high profile in that party. He's very, very, very active on social media. He's always calling out what I'd call common sense views. He demands to get data and costs on asylum seekers, data and costs on crime figures and things like that. And also he gives his parliamentary salary to charity.
Yes, everyone goes on about that. Everybody goes on about that.
Plenty of richer people don't.
No, but plenty of richer people do. I mean, look, Margaret Thatcher, she never took a wage for being Prime Minister.
I think what's really interesting about the critique by Rupert Lowe is that he spoke about people and policy. And if one looks at the Reform Party, or indeed any of our political parties, the two challenges that they face, which they're all potentially failing right now, are having a compelling policy programme that deals with the challenges we face as a country, and having good people and attracting and keeping good people. And when he raised that in his original piece last week, which either precipitated this falling out, or perhaps was on account of the falling out, it really rang true for me. There are big question marks around the policy platform of reform. We noticed hold on a minute. We noticed the immigration policy, which was really ill thought through with the Stop the Boats, and also their energy policy, which lacked logic and rigour. So there is truth to at least some of his criticism.
A lot of us would say that, but it's a bit rich coming from the Tories, isn't it? The Tories have said, we're not going to give you any policies for another couple of years.
Yeah. No, I think it's a challenge for all parties. And I think, we saw with Labour's first 6 or 7 months in office that there was very little meat on the bones in terms of their own policy platform. One would have thought they would have used all those years in opposition well, and are only now coming to what they need to do. So I thought it was interesting, Rupert's critique. I thought it had a lot to it. And I think it will have a huge impact.
Yeah, I mean, just finally on that, I mean, Farage is obviously the central figure in reform, but they've now lost Ben Habib, they've lost Rupert Lowe. If they're serious about getting into government, they have to have a big enough book of MPs to have a health secretary, a chancellor, a deputy prime minister, all of these things. We have to have more familiarity from the party than just Farage. It feels like we're building these figures in reform and then suddenly they're disappearing.
I think that's a really good point, Andy, because at the moment, it's quite a small group of, shall we say, late middle-aged men who are the face of reform. And, how can they attract more people? And that's why I think this story makes a big difference, despite what some columnists in the media have said, because it sends a signal that these people aren't professionals, that it's all a bit amateur. And what message will that send to people out there who are considering getting involved?
We get a lot of messages from people saying, I'm still voting reform because it's the only way I can see out of this, the mess the country's in.
People have truly had enough of the uniparty. We've had Labour, we've had Conservative, all talking tough on immigration, all talking tough on policing, all talking tough on all sorts of things. Reform are at least saying that they're going to have a different stance on immigration. There might be holes in some of those policies.
Isn't the truth that they've got to shut up bickering at each other publicly? They've actually got to mend, but mend quietly now behind closed doors so that they're not letting down the people who want to vote for them.
Yeah. I mean, look, BBC went to interview Rupert Lowe's constituents not long ago, and I thought they were going to do a hit piece on Rupert Lowe, and they interviewed Labour, people who voted Labour in the election, people who voted Conservative in the election, people who voted Reform in the election. They all said quite nice stuff about him at a local level. And I think it's a shame that we're losing, for reform, we're losing people that are successful at a local level.
Oh, heck, we've eaten up a load of time on this. Let's just have a quick look for a minute or so, Jennifer, at the Sun on Sunday and the activist who scaled Big Ben yesterday.
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, this was quite a security breach and really concerning. They've brought in certain measures since the very sad death of the policeman a few years ago. But this just goes to show that they're nowhere near robust enough, that this gentleman was able to scale the gates in 10 seconds and stay up there that long. What if he'd had a weapon? What if he'd had a bomb? I don't know. There's a narcissism about a lot of these protesters who think that they and their cause are more important than the safety and security of the public or people driving past.
But the money we spent and the time that was spent, just making sure he didn't fall for all those hours.
Checking he was OK.
Yeah. And they closed the bridge. One of the busiest bridges in London.
The cost of tourism and the cost of the local area is
ridiculous.
And I tell you what, if you tried to park your car next to Westminster, you'd be quickly given the Evo. You drop litter near there, they're soon on you. How on earth did this moron manage to get past, apparently, our finest police and scale a building of that height? It must have taken him a significant amount of time.
It's the fact he stayed there for 16 hours and no one actually did anything about it, apart from chat to him on a cherry picker. All right, Andy, Jennifer, thanks very much indeed.
Time for the weather now. Here's Craig Snell.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, today, most of us will see another fine and sunny day, and in the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm for the time of year. It's not going to be everywhere, though. The very far north of Scotland, we continue with some cloud and rain here, and also very down towards the very far southwest, could just see a few showery outbreaks of rain from time to time. But for a lot of the UK, lots of sunshine around, and in the sunshine, temperatures will really respond quite widely into the high teens across much of England and Wales, and we could see a few spots reaching 20 degrees, that's 68 in Fahrenheit. As we move into the evening, this band of cloud and rain across the far north of Scotland will gradually begin to sink a little bit further southwards, but for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, it will be a very fine end to the day with some late sunshine. Much of England and Wales also very similar, fine end to the weekend to come. Really the exceptions are going to be down towards the very far southwest of England, where again we could just see a few spots of rain to end Sunday. So moving into the nighttime period, that band of rain across Scotland will continue to sink its way a little bit further south. Behind it, much colder air and also quite a brisk breeze developing. But for a lot of the UK, it's going to be a fairly quiet night. Could see some mist and fog form, especially along some North Sea coasts, and in the countryside, it will turn pretty chilly as we start Monday morning. But for a lot of England and Wales, we do start the day fairly bright once any early mist and fog clears, but cloud will begin to bubble up quite widely across the UK during the course of Monday, so much more cloud in the sky compared to the weekend. That band of rain across Scotland will track its way into parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England as the afternoon goes on. Behind it, much colder. Temperatures really struggling across Scotland, but still reaching the mid-teens across much of England and Wales.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and the designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Nigel Farage breaks his silence on the row ripping through reform.
He admits the feud has dented the sense of unity within the party.
Well, it comes as insiders say Rupert Lowe is the biggest threat to Nigel Farage. Can the party recover?
So following the Farage fallout, we are asking, what do you think? Is he fit to lead reform?
Another week of record border crossings and a new warning today as a Palestinian asylum seeker who's just arrived on our shores called on God to kill all Jews. The Home Office can't confirm whether he's been arrested.
We'll be talking to Israeli MP Sharon Haskell just after 8 this morning about the latest threat facing British Jews, as well as why the BBC, in her view, should be investigated.
A wake-up call for Whitehall. Reports the government set to introduce performance-related pay and some enhanced exit processes for poor performers in the civil service.
The King's message to the Commonwealth. The monarch praises its ability to bring people together in uncertain times.
Britain is amongst those hardest hit by the pandemic. 5 years since the COVID outbreak, new analysis shows the UK has had one of the worst economic bounce backs.
And who's going to be crowned the King or Queen of Crofts? It's the final day of the world's largest dog show.
Good morning. Liverpool move 16 points clear at the top of the Premier League, with closest rivals Arsenal looking to at least stay in touch by winning at Old Trafford later today. And Lord Coe has a start warning for social media bosses Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. More later.
Good morning. The sun will be shining once again today for most of us, but a change is on the way next week, turning much colder. Find out all the details a little later.
Good morning to you. It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, I've upset Susan about Crofts.
Oh,
saying it probably
what?
smells there. She said, what a ridiculous comment.
Oh, I doubt it.
Do you really think that people take dirty, smelly dogs to
No.
Crofts? No, but...
It just smells doggy.
Doggy. I know people who have gone and reported there, and it does really stink.
They used to hold they still may, the Horse of the Year show in the NEC in Birmingham. And when I was a reporter in Birmingham, I went along to the International Horse Show, or whatever it was called then. And again, I mean, the horses are wonderful, but the atmosphere in an enclosed, even though it was an enormous arena, the atmosphere was thick with horse, basically. And I fainted, and the St John's Ambulance people had to revive me, because again, I didn't know until that day that I was very allergic to horses.
Oh.
But it just shows, the atmosphere can just build, dog dander or whatever they call it. There's things that you can be allergic to. And those atmospheres can be very... Although I must say that the dog show, because I was watching it yesterday, didn't look that way at all. Maybe it's a much bigger arena, or dogs are smaller than horses.
Where is it? The NEC? I mean, that is huge.
Must be the NEC.
Yeah. Interestingly, where's that gone now? Oh, Pixie Brown. Is Farage fit to lead reform? Which is, what we've been asking. She says he is reform.
Yeah, Bob says the same thing. Nobody will fill Nigel's boots. He is reform.
But that's part of the problem.
It needs to be more than one man, doesn't it?
Because that's what causes some of the... it's really difficult. I mean, he is the voter magnet. He absolutely is, and it's the charisma and all the rest of it. but obviously he's not going to be around forever. You can't build a party entirely around one
man.
So it's really difficult.
What about how you make the tea?
Oh, yes, that's fine.
Philip says, I remember asking for a cup of tea in a New York diner in 1976. And they put a tea bag in a cup, poured milk on top, and then put hot water on top of that. It was terrible.
That's a disgrace.
It is.
I've done that.
You what?
I think I did that once.
Oh, that's awful.
Oh, no, you can't. Put the milk in first if it's just got a tea bag in a cup.
Donkeys years ago, someone made me... I said, can I have a cup of tea? And they put a tea bag in a cup, cold water, and then put it in the microwave.
Oh, no.
Well, that's what Meghan has apparently done in her... Yeah, Meghan Sussex.
That's how she made a cup of tea?
No, not a cup of tea. That's how she makes spaghetti. She gets a big, like, frying pan.
Yeah.
She does the vegetables, you know, she fries up the vegetables or whatever sauce she's going to make. Then she gets raw spaghetti, puts it in, pours in some boiling water, puts the lid on and just cooks it on the top of the cooker. So she's already got the sauce. She's already got the sauce in the pan, and then she's putting raw spaghetti on the top. And when I mean raw, I mean uncooked spaghetti. Just covers it with water, puts the lid on, and people are going up in arms. Of course, they're being critical of her wherever they can, and saying that's no way to cook spaghetti.
I love that pie I had yesterday, by the way.
The pie was good.
Yeah, I took it home. Yeah, it was a bit big. I was a bit greedy actually, but.
Which pie did you say?
It was the Dutch apple and
the Dutch apple.
That's the one you like.
I heated it, but I put it in the oven for 40 minutes, and it was outstanding. I have to say, bit of custard with it, excellent.
Yeah.
We crashed their website yesterday.
Well, we didn't. You did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Well,
so obviously pies have gone down very well.
Deserves it. Very good stuff.
Yeah, very nice. Right, back to Farage. He's broken his silence on the row engulfing reform following the suspension of Rupert Lowe.
Yeah, today he's writing in the Sunday Telegraph. It's on the front page, and he claims the last election shows that the public don't like parties that engage in constant infighting. And he has vowed to ensure that all party representatives behave responsibly.
Well, there have been allegations of bullying and physical violence made against Rupert Lowe. He strongly denies all of that.
And then what followed was public criticism of the party's leadership by the MP for Great Yarmouth, in which Nigel Farage claims that has very much dented this sense of unity.
Political commentator Duncan Barks is here. What is interesting is, of course, we're getting all this stuff from insiders who say, you know, if you've had anything to do with reform in the last 8 months since the general election, you will have known that there's been a lot of tension between Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, which is interesting that it's now clearly all coming to the surface.
Yeah. We had Ben Habib on GB News last night. Ben Habib used to be the co-deputy leader of Reform. He was making comments saying that, you know, Nigel needs to let go a little bit of control of the party. I've seen interviews in the last 48 hours with a guy called Howard Cox, who was the Reform London mayoral candidate as well, saying a similar thing. Both Howard and Ben are no longer anything to do with Reform UK. Some people are saying, well, look, there's some evidence there that there are, if you like, wreckage along the way of people who fall out with Nigel Farage and have nothing to do with the party. But I think one of the messages from a viewer earlier does rather sum it up, because if you strip all of this down, it's like, well, if there is a view that Nigel Farage is not the right person to lead Reform and someone else should do it, first off, who is that person? And secondly, outside of the Twitter sphere, if you like, outside of the world of X and social media, which is rampant even this morning, with Reform supporters saying, well, Rupert Lowe's maybe got a point or Nigel Farage has got a point. Outside of that world, in the real world, the only person I believe most people associate with Reform UK is Nigel Farage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And with UKIP, when he moved on from UKIP, it collapsed.
Well, there's something interesting about UKIP, and you're absolutely right. So UKIP, I mean, I was working as a hack at the time, 2011, 2012, and UKIP increasingly was an absolute basket case. And if you talk to Nigel Farage about it, he would say, I couldn't get anything done. I couldn't get policy through. I couldn't sort anything out because there were too many people getting involved, which then brings you round to where the Reform Party is at the moment, and some people saying that he's got his, to use a nautical term, his hand, you know, firmly on the tiller. And you can have some sympathy with with that, which is that I've been here before, I've had my fingers burnt with UKIP, I want to make sure we can do the right stuff for reform.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing it's odd because they've all weighed in now. Well, not all of them.
Well, Richard Tice has been relatively quiet.
Yes, he has, hasn't he? Which is very interesting, because that's surely the thing to do at the moment, is to mend these broken fences between them, but to do it quietly and not to upset people.
Don't do it on social media. Again, social media is not representative of the real world, but it's still playing out where you've had people who were previous reformers making their points this morning. Yesterday, Lee Anderson, who's the chief whip and the Reform MP, did a statement, and Rupalo was very quick to come back and just say, look, what you said is untrue. All of this is playing out. Now, it gives people like me and us loads of stuff to talk about on the telly on a Sunday morning, but is it the kind of stuff that Reform wants to be talked about?
We say Richard Tice has been quiet.
Well, I haven't seen anything yet.
Well, you will do, because he's going to be on Camilla Tominey's show, I think at 10:15 this morning.
Excellent.
So
well, you say excellent, but surely it's not. They've got to calm down and shut up.
You can't ignore it, though, can you? Got to address it.
I don't know. It's a tightrope, isn't it? Because if he says nothing, people like me go, why haven't you said anything?
Yeah.
And as you rightly say, it's like, well, here's a guy who was, up until recently, leader of Reform. It's only right and proper he pops up and gives his view. But all of this has been played out, again online, but also on TV screens across Britain.
Can we talk about migration?
Yes.
Because the Mail on Sunday has this story that's managed to pick up someone who was picked up by UK Border Force, illegally crossing the Channel just on Thursday. A man in his, they think, about mid-30s. It turns out they've done a tiny bit of digging on Facebook and all the rest of it. He's posted videos and all the rest of it saying death to all Jews, and he now appears to be walking the streets of the UK.
It appears to be the case. The Mail have got an exclusive this morning, the Mail on Sunday, not just calling for the slaughter of all Jews, but pictures of him posing with AK-47 machine guns. It's taken a couple of mouse clicks online to discover this person's background. We now know he's in the country, but it appears we're not entirely sure where he is. The Home Office last night refused to say whether or not they were aware of his militant background or whether he was free to roam the streets. The Mail on Sunday contacted Kent Police, because obviously he came across into Dover, and they said they were unaware of any arrests related to this case. Now, this gets us into the whole area, and we know about the number. I mean, 1,600 people arrived by small boats last week alone into this country. It's a chunky old number. People are coming into this country, and it gets us into the whole area of border security. We do not know who's coming here. And then, you have some elements just going in the whole debate, well, we shouldn't be demonising people who class themselves as refugees. But then you get a case like this, and anyone watching GB News this morning will be going, rightly, I don't want someone like this in Great Britain. They shouldn't be here. They're a threat. And you have people who are former security experts, former military people, just saying this man needs to be found and arrested because clearly he is a danger.
Why can't the Home Office and the government see that that's what we need to be told about this?
Yeah. It's about transparency, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, and also, you could turn this into a positive, because it is a massive political issue, as we know. We know immigration is one of those issues that scores high on any polling when they ask voters about the stuff they're concerned about, particularly illegal immigration. If the government or the Home Office came out and said, there is this person, they're under arrest, they came to this country, actually that could be seen as a positive through the eyes of the public. But instead, the shutters come down. Oh, we're not going to talk about this. And we sit here just going, this is preposterous.
It does feel like the government shoves their head in the sand at various points. Duncan, thank you. It's our poll of the day today. We're asking, should the government concentrate on the migrant crisis rather than Ukraine? I don't know if it really should be an either-or.
No, you want them to deal with both, don't you?
Well, you would think so. Anyway, we'll bring you results throughout the day, finishing off in Nana's show later on. If you want to take part, gbnews.com/poll.
Now, King Charles will hail the Commonwealth's power to unite nations in friendship during his annual Commonwealth Day address, which is official tomorrow.
He'll emphasise enduring strength in uncertain times and celebrate differences as a source of strength in a speech at Westminster Abbey.
Also attending the service alongside the King will be Queen Camilla, the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Princess Royal and the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester.
Let's talk to Royal Correspondent Richard Palmer, who's in Hampshire this morning. What do you make of what we're expecting to hear from the King tomorrow, Richard?
Morning. Yeah, hello. Yeah, I think it's the message of unity in uncertain times. He talks about in these uncertain times, and there's an underlying message to the Commonwealth's theme this year. Together we thrive. I think one of the interesting things is that the Secretary General and her staff, Patricia Scotland, are looking to increase trade between Commonwealth nations, and at a time when Donald Trump is really upending our world order. And I mean, there are two things to say, I suppose. The King, obviously, he's head of the Commonwealth. Not only our head of state of 14 other countries, including Canada, which is facing very difficult times with President Trump at the moment. So he faces a difficult diplomatic tightrope walk, trying to represent the interests of the Canadian government while also representing the interests of the British government, which is taking a much more softly approach to the new US administration. My understanding is, he's prepared to do that. So Canadians want him to speak up against Donald Trump. I don't think he'll do that in public. I think he'll play more good cop to the Canadian Prime Minister's bad cop when dealing with President Trump. But there's all of that going on, and then there's this drive to increase trade, and particularly I think the Canadians are very keen now to renew and strengthen ties with other Commonwealth nations, because they're seeing their market for exports potentially disappearing with their southern neighbour. So the Commonwealth is currently, I think it's about £950 billion a year, the value of trade between Commonwealth nations. That's expected to go up to $1 trillion next year, and they're looking to double it to $2 trillion by 2030. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, I think, with the Commonwealth.
Yeah, and we know how important the Commonwealth is, or certainly was to the late Queen, but also to now King Charles. And he must be feeling wretched over the threats from Donald Trump to Canada. I mean, apparently President Trump is referring to Canada now as the 51st state, and is referring to Prime Minister Trudeau as the governor of that state. It's very insulting, but it gives the King a real problem, isn't it? Because he is King of Canada, but he is also meant to be throwing, open and embracing President Trump in a second state visit. It's very, very difficult for him, isn't it?
It is very difficult, and not even a second. So I think we're expecting 2 inbound visits from President Trump, one to Scotland, to either Balmoral or to Dumfries House, the King's residence in Ayrshire, where they're going to plan the state visit. From what I hear, that's likely to be happening sooner rather than later. And a state visit could even happen this year, possibly more likely next year. But then on top of that, you've got the King and Queen probably going to the US next year as well to mark the 250th anniversary of US independence. So UK and US are trying to get really close at this difficult time, and yet Canada, as you say, it will have been very difficult for the King. It will have upset him and it's not just that as well. Obviously, the King has we know the King's views on climate change, for example, on combating climate change, and all of the rhetoric coming out of the White House is exactly the opposite to all the drill baby drill and the to increase oil and gas production. It's not the message that the King is sending, is it? So yes, I think it's going to be difficult for him, but he spent his whole life doing this. Diplomacy is what he does, and I'm pretty sure that he'll be able to square the circle.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. Richard, good to see you. Thank you.
It was very upsetting seeing how upset Prime Minister Trudeau was after his conversation with Donald Trump. I mean, he was reduced to tears, which is a very unusual thing to see in a very experienced politician. But he must have felt it very personally, that deliberate insult.
Yes, yeah, but it's also how
How Donald Trump plays
operates.
it. Yes, it is.
You know, it's what he does. Whether he is. How did Nigel describe it? Take it seriously, but not literally.
That's right.
All these sort of things. It's how he plays it. Whether it'll achieve anything he wants, and we will have to wait and see.
OK, it is 19 minutes past 7. Shall we go to the weather now? Here's Craig Snell.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. The sun will be shining once again today for most of us, but a change is on the way next week, turning much colder. Find out all the details a little later.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh, he's making us wait.
Yeah.
Ew,
we'll bring you the
devil,
full
Craig.
weather report in a few minutes' time.
Now, we want to make your spring spectacular in our latest Great British giveaway. You could win £17,777 in tax-free cash. No idea why, but that's the figure. Also, you get not one, but 2 designer watches and a designer bag. If you fancy all of that, here's how you enter.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Do stay with us, because still to come, we are asking, is Nigel Farage the right person to lead reform? Yes, I can feel the reaction now. We'll be debating that in a couple of moments.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
So many people I know this applies to. We are terrified of driving in that because you're literally getting blinded now. What's going on here?
You are. I'm going to be a little bit contentious, though, and say that bright headlights have actually come about in order to make roads safer. Because if, like me, you've had experience of driving older cars, you'll know just how appalling the older style headlights can be. And in fact, you know, you can't actually see very clearly the road ahead. So the new xenon and LED headlight technology actually stemmed from a racing background when cars were racing at night in order to make the roads brighter. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a problem for drivers, but I do sort of think that, you know, this possibly could be part of the whole culture of people liking to have something to complain about. And they kind of need to learn, and I think this really should be part of the driving test. You need to learn how to drive at night and not to look directly into the headlights that are coming towards you.
But the RSC survey also shows, Amanda, that it suggests that there's been at least 200 road accidents which could be directly attributed to people being dazzled by the light. So that can't be good.
No, exactly. And I mean, I'm not belittling the accidents, and I'm certainly not belittling the people who have problems, particularly things like cataracts, which can really be a problem for nighttime driving. And it is a really serious problem when it comes to safety, admittedly. But again, I just feel that, you know, bright headlights actually essentially make the road safer. We've got far more people travelling on the roads these days than we've ever had at any point in history. And so by virtue of the fact, we are going to see these numbers rising because, of course, there are going to be more people who are going to be dazzled by the headlights.
The People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
It's 7:24 now. As we've been reporting this morning, a row has erupted within Reform UK, suspending MP Rupert Lowe. He said the party doesn't have effective leadership.
Yeah, he also claimed that Nigel Farage has a, quote, complete inability to accept even the most mild constructive criticism.
So with that in mind, is he the right man to still be leading Reform?
Joining us to debate this, former parliamentary candidate for Reform UK, Mark Hoth, and the leader of Liverpool's Liberal Democrats, Carl Cashman. A very good morning to both of you. Gosh, Mark, what do you think of this recent debacle?
Well, I think it's very disappointing this is being played out in the public eye. To begin with, I think, in answer to your question, is Nigel the right person to lead Reform UK? Absolutely. He's taken us to record levels in terms of opinion polls. He's taken us to nearly 220,000 members. So in terms of, is he the right person to lead Reform UK? Undoubtedly so. However, I do think that it's very disappointing to see Rupert Lowe, Lee Anderson playing out their squabbles on Twitter, as we saw yesterday. And I think we need to get a little bit more professional in terms of how we're dealing with each other.
But the issue, Mark, would seem to be that this has been bubbling under the surface since the election, basically. That's what people are saying. And the criticism, which we've heard from Nigel's previous parties and colleagues, is that he cannot take any criticism. If you criticise Nigel, you've got to go. I mean, that isn't a good way to run a party, is it?
No, and if that was the fact that he can't take criticism or can't take constructive feedback, but I think a lot of the people that are talking this way about Nigel are people that perhaps haven't really stepped up to the plate when it's come down to it. You know, we've seen a lot of chatter, there's a lot of stuff on X. The bottom line is, the real stories this week are about nearly 1,500 people coming across the channel, undocumented, largely male, fighting-age migrants coming across the channel. The real problem is that we've seen an attempted introduction of two-tier justice in the UK this week. And I'm sorry, but this is pretty unedifying that we're seeing this, you know, happening, being played out, you know, on Twitter or on Facebook, etc., etc. But the real problem is that Nigel has been the person that has, in fairness, Stephen, you know, called out these issues that we've got with the country. And Nigel, in my view, is still absolutely the right man to lead Reform UK.
So what do you think, Carl? I mean, has he now become a divisive figure?
Well, I think he's always been a divisive figure, hasn't he? And I think what Mark's just proven there is that Reform UK aren't an anti-establishment party. You know, he's just completely avoided the question about Nigel, started talking about both. So, I mean, I think this is what happens with all populist movements in the end, is that they all want the top job, they all end up fighting amongst themselves. And I think it proves that Reform aren't a serious party. It's reminded us that they've only got 5 MPs now down to 4, and that they actually care more about who their leader is than actually getting the job done in the country.
But come on, Carl. It's a bit rich from the Lib Dems. That, I mean, the Lib Dems have got a reputation for being the most ruthless party in Westminster when it comes to toppling their leaders. We only have to look at what's happened over the past 15, 20 years.
I think when the Liberal Democrats change their leader, they do it democratically, and we have a conversation within the party. I mean, I'd put the Liberal Democrats at the complete opposite wing of reform. You know, our members form party policy. We get a say in everything that we do, one member and one vote. And reform, you know, Nigel says that he's given the party over to the members. It doesn't look like that if you look at Companies House, and maybe Rupert Lowe's got a little bit touchy about that.
I mean, Mark, the problem is now that this break or break up has already happened. We're seeing it played out in the media and on social media, which is particularly upsetting for people who were looking to reform, to literally do that, reform politics in this country and give them a vision of some sort of a future. And we've got so many reactions from people who watch the programme and listen to the programme saying we just feel completely devastated that reform is fracturing. How can, if he is such a good leader as you believe, how can he make sure this fracturing stops and that he does start to unite the party again? How can he do that with big egos that are clearly clashing with each other?
Yeah, look, I think just to be really, really clear, I've got a lot of time and a lot of respect for Rupert Lowe. I think it's important that we get that across. I think it's very disappointing what's happened. My email inbox has been full over the last couple of days with people that are quite disaffected with some of the things that have been going on. However, I just go back to the point, you know, it's a bit rich from somebody from the Liberal Democrats to start saying that we're not a serious party. You know, we've got the second highest number of members in terms, the second highest number of members in the UK. You know, we will very shortly overtake the Labour Party in terms of the number of members that we'll have, because their numbers have dropped by 11%. In fact, I had an interesting email to somebody saying that they should change the ticker because Labour have actually now just dropped below 300,000 members. We'll overtake them. So I think it's a bit rich from somebody from the Lib Dems to be saying that we're not a serious party. You know, we'll be holding meetings, we'll be holding rallies over the next few weeks. We're going to sell out the NEC on the 28th of March. I'm not sure that anybody's going to sell out to go and see Ed Davey, shall we say, from the Lib Dems. So I think it's really, really important that we get across the message that actually, yes, this is a big difficulty, but yes, Nigel Farage is the right person to keep leading us forward as we move forward. In 4 years' time, remember, we've got 4 years' time because we've got 4 years of this dreadful Labour government that we're going to have to put up with, and then we're going to take it. We're basically going to win the election.
Lib Dem, I mean, look, you can't be overly critical of reform, Carl, can you? I mean, to be fair, the Labour Party and the Conservatives particularly have found out to their peril that if you dismiss reform as some, you know, sort of little start-up that isn't going anywhere, well, you're going to find out different.
Well, we've just had a recent by-election in Liverpool where Reform came third, and he says that, you know, we can't say that Reform aren't a serious party. It's all well and good selling out concerts where you've got Nigel Farage, the man who can't take criticism, but like standing up in front of a bunch of people shouting about things. They've got 4 MPs. They had 5 MPs. They just lost 20% of the parliamentary party. The Liberal Democrats have got 72 MPs. We've got 3,000 councillors. We control 20 councils. So when it comes to the size of a party, I mean, let's not have a slanging match about that. And I think this goes back to Reform being completely unserious, because they're led at the moment by Nigel Farage, who is unserious and, as you said, can't take that criticism. I think to be a good leader, a good political leader, you need to be able to take that criticism and be able to change tack.
We're out of time. I'm being yelled at, Carl, but you can't criticise Nigel for not being serious enough when Ed Davey spent the general election campaign jumping into rivers and messing about like a schoolboy.
We've got 72 MPs.
Yeah, but he wasn't. But it wasn't a serious run campaign, was it? In that sense, it was effective. It worked, but he was acting the fool. So you can't then criticise somebody else for not being serious.
Well, he's not serious. He's got 4 MPs. He's just lost one.
OK. Got to leave it there. Carl Cashman, Mark Hoth, thanks very much indeed.
I think there's a big reaction to this at home. But there you go. We're talking about him, aren't we, I suppose?
Well, we've got you, yeah. And this is an issue that it is important, and it's important because, yes, parliamentary terms, the party is very small. In terms of the national vote, in terms of membership, it's very big, and therefore it matters.
And also, interestingly, they do say, and I don't know how true this is, but certainly political commentators say that Reform are taking a leaf out of the Lib Dems notebook on how to build up their membership by making sure they do very well in local elections, and they do really good constituency work and really build their membership up that way. And that does seem to be working because their membership is strong and more people are joining, aren't they?
I just think you can't. For the Lib Dems, or that particular Lib Dem, to criticise Reform for being brutal in how they treat the leader, or not being serious or the leader not being serious enough, I think is a bit rich. I do think that's a bit rich.
But then
anyway.
That's politics.
It's politics. And
very rich.
That all worked for them at the election. They did get 72 MPs. Carl Cashman's quite right on that. But you've got to be very careful where you level criticism.
You've got to start somewhere, though, and Reform started with 5. It's very sad they've gone down to 4 right now, but or at least they'll feel it's very sad. But they've still got lots of time.
Right, lots more on that coming up. Plus, we've got the sport with Aidan.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Trans police officers will be allowed to strip search women despite ongoing backlash from critics. New guidance for the National Police Chiefs Council says that biologically male staff who identify as women should be allowed to intimately search women as long as they possess a gender recognition certificate. Now, what could possibly go wrong? But some women's rights groups claim that the police had forgotten about women in their pursuit of gender ideology. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner, Lisa Townsend. Lisa, a delight to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much for joining us. A lot of people have very, very legitimate concerns that if you're a woman, you're in a vulnerable position, you're being searched intimately, it should be another woman who is searching you. And a trans woman, in a lot of people's eyes, isn't a woman. They're a biological man who says they're a woman. What's your take on this?
I'm afraid that this is just the latest in a long line of announcements like this from the NCC about the ability for trans police officers to search women, males, essentially, to search women. We wouldn't think it was OK anywhere else, and it's not OK in policing. I think there's also another way of looking at this, which is it's not just male officers, and they are born male. We are talking about males being able to search women. It's also the other way round. It's also female officers potentially being told that they have to search a trans woman, i.e. a male who has been brought into custody. That male could have been brought into custody because he himself has been violent, and he is insisting that he is a woman and therefore, you know, there's no time to check the gender recognition certificate, but that's how he identifies, and he insists on a female officer searching him. So I think we have to look at this on both sides, and either way it can't be right.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport, and Aidan McGee is here. And a very good morning to you again.
Indeed.
Let's start looking at the Premier League, shall we? What's going on there?
Well, look, Liverpool rested a few players yesterday. They had Southampton at home. Now, this was Liverpool who, they did win 3-1 and they went 16 points clear against a team that's vying to become the worst in Premier League history. So they rested players. They had a big game against PSG in Paris earlier in the week. It was a real smash and grab, and I mean, Liverpool were right up against it.
I was just going to PSG, Paris
Saint-Germain, yeah, exactly. They were absolutely... They were crucified in that game. They really were, and they won it. They won it towards the end, and came away with what's known in football as a smash and grab raid. And so yesterday, their manager Arne Slot at the end of the game said that game against Southampton was the first of 3 finals. So they've got the second leg against Paris on Tuesday at Anfield in the Champions League. If they get through that, they're through to the semi-finals, also the quarter-finals, I think it is, and then. After that, they play next Sunday against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final. So it's a huge week for them. They got the job done yesterday, although they did concede in the first half. But it was a big day of Premier League action anyway. Nottingham Forest, as we touched on earlier on this morning, they beat Manchester City to stay in Champions League contention.
I mean, what's going on with City now?
I know 9 defeats in a season or in the Premier League for the first time or equals the worst that they've had under Pep Guardiola, and that would have been, I would think, in his first season way back in 2016-17. So it's not been plain sailing. Some of the players have just got to an age where they need a bit of a changeover. They've started that process. I do believe they'll be stronger next season, and you can't win it every year. So Alex Ferguson used to say that. I mean, he won 13 league titles with Manchester United, and he said, but you can't. I was there for 26 years. You can't win it every year, can you? Did well to win half of them, and we've got some good games today as well. We've got Chelsea against Leicester now. Leicester, again, one of the worst teams in the league. They go to Chelsea. Chelsea, if they win, will overtake Manchester City and go into the top 4. And we've got Bournemouth in action today at Tottenham at 2 o'clock.
Right. Lord Coe, Seb Coe, is having a go at Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Good luck to him.
So this is like the domestic politics equivalent of the hustings, really. I mean, this is Lord Coe vying for the presidency of the IOC, believed to be the biggest job in sport. I mean, you could argue about that, whether it is or not. But what's that? That's
me,
not Lord Coe, is it?
No, it's not. Really
no,
not to
it's 2 weeks to go. 2 weeks to go until the election. And he's calling on the tech giants, particularly X and Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, to say, look, is there anything you can do to try and limit the abuse that female athletes receive? And he referenced Eilish McColgan, who had spoken about her experience of body shaming.
Is this on social media?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's been a bit of a problem. He's also already spoken about how he's going to do his best to keep biological males out of women's sports, to try and protect it. And he wants to go a step further. He's going to have the first thing he'll do in his intro will be to speak to those two protagonists, as I mentioned there, and have a chat and just see if they can do anything to try and limit it. I'm not sure what they can actually do.
At? I like Seb Coe, and he did what a job he did with 2012.
Yeah.
But actually, him saying, I'm going to talk to these two to sort out problems, because it's not just about abuse to sporting people. It's abuse of everybody. It's child pornography. It's all you can't. If he thinks he's going to sit down, therefore they'll sort it out.
Well, he used some quite inflammatory language as well. He said he wanted to sort out the pond life abusing female sports.
Well, they are pond life.
Yes, it is.
Why not call it out?
Yeah, true. But I just don't know how far he could go, as Stephen said.
But if he became president of the International Olympic Committee, he's going to have to deal with the views of all of those countries.
Yes, I know.
And that is what will make his
and that literally encompasses every country in the world. Nobody's not really part of it, so it's not like even being involved with FIFA, or other sports.
Mind you, he's an experienced politician.
Yes, he is. He is, and he also wants to confront issues like stalking as well, which Emma Raducanu suffered a couple of weeks.
He'd be better off just telling his athletes not to be on social media. Right?
Yeah, you probably
rather than trying to. I mean, that'd be the way forward.
They won't do that though, because they make money out of it.
I think he's shouting into the wind a little bit. All right, Aidan, thank you very much indeed. Let's get a check on some of the hottest European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Low pressure still dominates western parts of the Mediterranean. Outbreaks of showers, heavy rain, some strong winds as well. Temperatures a little below average for the time of year. Through Monday, showers across the west, some longer spells of rain, Spain and Portugal there. Showers across into Italy, temperatures in the mid-teens. But the best of the dry weather across Greece, across into Turkey as well. Plenty of sunny spells here. And the outlook for is it to improve a little with temperatures rising too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Well, let's talk about something that has really divided opinion now. So this is King Charles gearing up for a religious festival, not Easter, Ramadan, packing dates for Muslims, observing a month of fasting. Here's the clip.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize the king would be so fast. You are packing dates faster than I can see them.
What do you make of that, Charlie?
Well, I don't see any problems with it. I mean, let's not forget that the royals, particularly the king, does an awful lot of work with a variety of charities, especially those charities that help people who are, down on their luck or need a bit of extra boost. This one is a doorstep charity which provides help to people waiting for new homes. Now, you mentioned this one. This is for Ramadan. Now, in a month's time, Patrick, he'll be doing the Easter service. A Christian festival, and he'll on the day before Good Friday he'll be donating the Maundy money that comes out every year to 30-odd pensioners. It's not a princely sum. They're not going to be able to pay the winter fuel allowance, or it's not going to cover anything like that. But it is symbolic. Now, he does an awful lot of things. And remember, years and years ago, Charles has always said he didn't want to be defender of the faith. He wanted to be defender of all faith. So it's only right that the king fosters good relationships with a variety of religions.
As well, Charles, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you on. Good to see you again, mate. It's been a little while. It's Charlie Ray there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Right, 7:46. Let's go through the papers with Andy Jones and Jennifer Powers. Do you know, I was very excited this morning when I saw your name on the list.
Why is that?
I hate to say this because I said Jennifer Powers. I said,
you must get
this. Heart to Heart.
I get that from men of a certain age.
Thank you. Well, I am a man of a certain age. I thought Stephanie Powers was coming in.
And the character was called Jennifer Hart.
She was. You see, this
and
is the
so it confuses, yes, middle-aged people like our good selves.
He's not middle-aged.
Oh, who, me? I'm past middle-aged now. Right, anyway, let's crack on with Labour's war on yobs, Andy.
Well, some war, come on. I mean, Yvette Cooper screams, well, not screams, but he says, after years of weak and inconsistent responses to antisocial behaviour, our new respect orders. This is a new term. They've got respect orders. Are you ready to order some respect, Yvette? She says, will enable police to tackle persistent offenders. I'm very excited about this. We all agree there should be a war on yobs. And yet she unveils a load of policies that already exist. She says Labour will give police, councils and other political public bodies the power to ban persistent offenders from areas where they have caused misery.
They can do that
I suppose.
anyway.
Already do that already. Yeah. And she says louts could be sent on alcohol or anger management courses, which they can already do already.
Yes.
And all this will do is it will give judges another way of not sending people to prison. And so by sending someone an anger management course or a booze course or whatever else, drugs dependency course, which they can already do, encouraging them to do this will mean that they just don't send them to prison. It'll be another slap on the wrist
important, though. I mean,
before they send them to
Yvette
prison.
Cooper's got that in her brief here, hasn't she? I mean, she's got to make sure that there's room in prisons for real offenders.
Well, quite. We could deport some of the several thousand foreign offenders that have been languishing in there for a very long time, and that would create a lot of room. But also stop sending people to prison for saying, "Oh, I disagree with the police or whoever on this particular issue." But yeah, this is just existing laws dressed up as a big red top story.
Can we look at the Mail on Sunday, Jennifer? Because now wandering the streets of the UK since Thursday, it would seem, is a Palestinian who says death to all Jews.
Yeah, this is quite a horrifying story about Abu Wadi, who has posted videos of himself all across the web, declaring death to the Jews and supporting terrorist activity. And he's been caught by our border security. But given the laws...
Caught?
Identified.
I mean, escorted over the channel.
He floated in on a dinghy.
Yeah. Well, as the Daily Mail have said on the front page, welcomed to the UK.
Well, and this is a real problem because, of course, asylum seekers are not deported or detained at the point that they land in Britain. They're put up in hotels and they can come and go as they please. And it's interesting that the Conservatives are actually tabling an amendment to the Border Security Bill, which would mean that the Human Rights Act does not apply to deportation cases, which would be welcome, but does beg the question why they didn't amend the Human Rights Act during their 14 years in government.
Well, yes. Yes.
Right. I mean, this individual, he's been involved in more than just supporting terror. He's been involved in throwing projectiles, attacking directly Israel citizens, talking about killing as many Jews. He said no Jews should be left on earth. I mean, there's no doubt about his positions. And these videos have been watched by millions and millions of people. This isn't just some sort of, under-the-stairs agitator. This is someone who's public and proactive about his beliefs.
In a way, though, that's helpful, isn't it, Andy?
It is.
Because at least we know that he has these views. Think of all those that don't have...
You're right. We've played this game for a very long time where we've had extremists allowed to espouse their views because rather like a moth to a flame, they attract all the other nutters and then we can sort of scoop them up. However, the fact that this individual's been allowed to float across on a dinghy, we fished him out, the Coast Guard's fished him out of the water. I assume he's in housing somewhere in the UK.
We'll be paying for him to have a nice hotel.
Tennis lessons.
And this has been going on. This has been going on 20 years. When I worked in asylum provision as a younger man, we were putting people in bed and breakfast. We were putting people in hotels. We had absolutely no idea about their beliefs, no idea if they were the age that they said they were. I was always astonished when we were seeing sort of men. I used to see sort of men in their 30s being put in, secondary schools next to young boys and girls because they said they were a teenager. We have absolutely no control over our borders. We have absolutely no control over who's coming in. We're sabre rattling at Russia, and yet we've got people scrambling up our government buildings. We've got people floating in on dinghies who've already demonstrated they're prepared to cause harm.
We let it happen.
Of course we do. And where are we? We're talking about banging the drum with Russia. We're talking about inserting ourselves in the Middle East. Can't protect our borders. Can't control our streets. Can't protect our government builders.
And if instead of putting him in a hotel with tennis lessons and everything else, he is actually caught and put in a detention centre or even in jail because it looks as though he has links with terrorism.
More than links.
Yeah, well, yes.
There's videos of him chucking stuff.
What will he do? We will actually pay for a human rights lawyer to plead European Court of Human Rights for him.
You've got to think about his feelings, Anne. This poor man, he does videos about how you can attach bombs to a kite and fly them over the border and blow people up.
But he will make the point, won't he, that he's scared to be deported back to his country?
Well, it begs questions for all the parties and most importantly for this government in terms of how they're going to respond because, we know about this man because of his bravado. Yeah. We know because he felt confident enough to put himself out there on the net and claim these things? What about the potentially dozens or hundreds or even thousands of illegal immigrants who've come who also harbour these views, who we don't know about? So, I think if Yvette Cooper wants to do another story to get herself in the papers, maybe we could have something a little bit more substantial to address these very real challenges.
We're down to the last minute or so. Jennifer, can we have a look at the Daily Star and dog showers? We're buying dog showers.
Well,
I've never heard of one.
They sound very practical. I mean, especially with the number of pet owners we have in this country now. We know during COVID, lots of people went out and got those special designer dogs. And I don't know, do either of you have any experience of a dog shower?
Well, I don't.
Well, I did. I had a dog shower.
I thought it was called a hose.
Yes, well, it is, but it's if you can only squirt very cold water at them, you might consider that's not very nice. So you have a dog shower which has a little heater in it, so that you are using warm water.
Oh, well.
My little Ellie dog was white, and when she went out, she came back filthy. And if you want them to be on your carpets or on your sofas, you just can't let them.
I think it sounds very practical.
Yeah, it is.
Pro carpet.
Yeah.
I will say, one of the few thriving businesses is dog grooming. You know, I go on my high street, half the shops are shuttered. You've got rundown cafe, you've got betting shops, you've got charity shops, and then you've got dog grooming. Yes. I mean, dog grooming, we're shampooing and looking after our dogs, barely looking after ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
It's not a criticism, by the way.
No. Right, OK, we've got to leave it there. We'll all go off and have a quick shower. Thank you both very much indeed. Well, you need one, Andy, let's be honest. Shall we have a look at the weather? Here's Craig.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, today, most of us will see another fine and sunny day, and in the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm for the time of year. It's not going to be everywhere, though. The very far north of Scotland, we continue with some cloud and rain here, and also very down towards the very far southwest, could just see a few showery outbreaks of rain from time to time. But for a lot of the UK, lots of sunshine around, and in the sunshine, temperatures will really respond quite widely into the high teens across much of England and Wales, and we could see a few spots reaching 20 degrees, that's 68 in Fahrenheit. As we move into the evening, this band of cloud and rain across the far north of Scotland will gradually begin to sink a little bit further southwards, but for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, it will be a very fine end to the day with some late sunshine. Much of England and Wales also very similar, fine end to the weekend to come. Really, the exceptions are going to be down towards the very far southwest of England, where, again, we could just see a few spots of rain to end Sunday. So moving into the nighttime period, that band of rain across Scotland will continue to sink its way a little bit further south. Behind it, much colder air and also quite a brisk breeze developing. But for a lot of the UK, it's going to be a fairly quiet night. Could see some mist and fog form, especially along some North Sea coasts, and in the countryside, it will turn pretty chilly as we start Monday morning. But for a lot of England and Wales, we do start the day fairly bright once any early mist and fog clears, but cloud will begin to bubble up quite widely across the UK during the course of Monday, so much more cloud in the sky compared to the weekend. That band of rain across Scotland will track its way into parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England as the afternoon goes on. Behind it, much colder. Temperatures really struggling across Scotland, but still reaching the mid-teens across much of England and Wales.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. too. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Nigel Farage breaks his silence on the row ripping through reform.
He admits that the feud has dented the sense of unity within the party.
Well, it comes as insiders say Rupert Lowe could be the biggest threat to Mr Farage. So, can reform recover?
Another week of record border crossings and a new warning today as a Palestinian asylum seeker who called on God to kill all Jews is picked up by Border Force crossing the Channel on Thursday. The Home Office apparently cannot confirm whether he's been arrested or not.
We'll be talking to Israeli MP Sharon Haskell just in a few minutes about that this morning, as well as the latest threat facing British Jews and why the BBC should be investigated.
There's a wake-up call for Whitehall. Reports the government is set to introduce performance-related pay and an exit process for poor performers in the civil service.
The King's message to the Commonwealth. The monarch praises its ability to bring people together in uncertain times.
Britain is amongst those hardest hit by the pandemic. It's 5 years since the COVID-19 outbreak, and new analysis shows that the UK has one of the worst economic bounce backs.
Should find out today who's going to be crowned the King or Queen of Crufts. Final day of the world's largest dog show.
A stunning Six Nations victory for France in Ireland came at a cost with an injury to Antoine Dupont, with England on standby to possibly take advantage at Twickenham today when they face Italy. And in the Premier League, meanwhile, Liverpool moved 16 points clear at the top and Nottingham Forest boosted their Champions League hopes with victory over Manchester City. More later.
Good morning. The sun will be shining once again today for most of us, but a change is on the way next week, turning much colder. Find out all the details a little later.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
We were talking earlier on about tea, because there's a new tea being launched to bridge the gap or tighten the relationship between the UK and the
Special
United
relationship.
States.
Is it a strained relationship?
I think it probably is a bit
Strained.
Well, I was going to say it probably is at the minute, but, you know, give him his due. Keir Starmer played a blinder.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody was expecting him to do as well as he did. It's going to get much harder for him now.
But there are reports that President Trump is really miffed, very annoyed that the King hosted President Zelensky. Because he says now hit the invitation to him for a second state visit is just not so special anymore.
Well, I mean,
I know it's
that's not how it works.
No, but that's the way that's what he's
I
complaining.
wasn't
of,
expecting such a
apparently.
full answer. It was a joke, strained, as in tea.
Yeah, no, well, I got it.
Oh, you got it. Oh, you didn't get it.
But it just wasn't that funny.
No.
Well, no, it's like most of your jokes. Anyway, Jackie says my tea is always made in a pot.
There you go.
A lot of us. I don't use the pot anymore. I've got a couple of teapots, but don't really use them, which is a shame, unless you've got people.
That's true.
around.
I've got nice teapots and they're just in a cupboard.
But Clive has coffee first thing with milk, then green tea or black tea with no milk for the rest of the day.
Did you have a Teasmade back in the 80s?
No.
Gosh, no.
I always wanted one.
I'm not that old. It was always even granny years. You know, it was people's grannies had
My mum
to
and dad have one by their bed. Back in 1982,
You can
83.
still get what
You can.
still get them.
Yeah, I think they're collector's items now, aren't they? Yeah.
I quite like that idea. Our alarm clock, cup of tea.
Anyway.
Yeah, but you had to prime it with milk the night before. You had to remember things like that.
Yeah,
true.
I know. Right, look, we're going to crack on and start with something different, actually, because after a week of record migrant crossings, the Mail today, or Mail on Sunday, has revealed that a Palestinian migrant arrived in the UK on Thursday. He was picked up on a dinghy crossing the Channel.
Now, according to the Mail on Sunday, Abu Wadi is prolific on social media. And it's there he has called for death to all Jews. And he posed with a string of pictures with weapons and depicting battles with Israel.
Well, we're joined by the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel, Sharon Haskell. Really good to see you this morning. And we're in a state with someone with these views, death to all Jews, is in the UK, and the Home Office doesn't seem to know where he is. He certainly doesn't seem to have been arrested. This is hugely disturbing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the Jewish community in the UK is threatened enough. There's enough anti-Semitism within the last year and a half that they've been combating and dealing with. Enough threats and violence towards them. I think, those kind of people shouldn't be pushed into the British community. And there should be vetting on people who are associated with terrorist organization, prescribed terrorist organization in the UK. So absolutely shameful.
It seems, and I think there are a lot of people watching this channel and listening to the radio who cannot understand why we don't take a tougher line on people who appear to be coming to this country and say things like that and take part in marches where the chanting is so very, very anti-Semitic. Can you understand why our government seems to be reluctant to take real action?
Well, look, I think, that there needs to be a bigger review in the essence of security and the security of the British people as well. Look, just last week, it was published that in the UAE, they've banned numerous terrorist organizations who has been radicalizing youth who took part in terrorist activity in support of jihad, including the Muslim Brotherhood. Many of them are linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. 8 of them are operating in the UK. The Muslim Brotherhood's not banned in the UK. It's not prescribed as well. And so I think there needs to be first a deep review into the prescription of quite a few of these terrorist organizations who have been radicalizing youth around the Middle East, who other Muslim countries actually see them as terrorist organization, as a threat to national security. And I think that after a deep investigation into that and a change of approach, Definitely. I think a border of a country is something that has to be secured. There has to be vetting, at least to people who are part of terrorist organization, specifically terrorist organization who are prescribed in the United Kingdom.
And I know you also have some concerns, don't you, about the BBC at the moment. I mean, we're all for, and we should all be for reflecting all sides of a debate, but it does seem, I'm not saying I think that the BBC is anti-Semitic, but there does seem to be an argument to say some levels of anti-Semitism do sneak through in things, and when it should absolutely be stamped out.
Look, I think it's pretty obvious. After 80 mistakes that the BBC actually did to actually really distort and to really shame the name of Israel, they really created a serious public relation problem. It's not just public relation, but they've actually told stories who are complete lies. And, you know, we'll accept maybe a mistake, 2 mistakes, 3 mistakes, but these are already 80 mistakes. It's not mistakes. It's on purpose. And so there should be a deep investigation into what's happening in the BBC. I mean, they should be impartial. They are funded by the public. They are funded by British taxpayer money. And when you know that they've actually invested £400,000 into, you know, a film which is pure Hamas propaganda, where probably some of this money ended in the hands of a person who's part of a prescribed terrorist organization in the UK. This is already, you know, this is already a crime. It's a crime in the UK to actually subsidize and send money into a terrorist organization. And if they did that, which, look, a child cannot receive this fund. If this child's dad is a deputy minister in Hamas terrorist organization, where did this money went to? It went to his parents. This is probably a regular procedure. But in this action, they've actually paid a family of Hamas members. So, you know, beside an investigation that I already called upon, that the police, I believe, should investigate this in particular, the fact is that the BBC is impartial. It's not impartial, okay? They have chosen a side during the last year and a half when Hamas has created the worst massacre against Jews since the Holocaust, and they are not even capable of calling Hamas a terrorist organization, where it's in the UK it's prescribed as a terrorist organization. You know, you understand that there's an agenda behind it, and I think there needs to be, you know, a recall and an overview and a review into what is really happening inside the BBC.
OK. Minister, we appreciate your time today. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We should tell you what the official BBC line is. A spokesperson gave us this statement during the production process. The independent production company was asked in writing a number of times by the BBC about any potential connections he and his family might have with Hamas. Since transmission, they've acknowledged that they knew that the boy's father was Deputy Agriculture Minister in the Hamas government. They've also acknowledged that they never told the BBC this fact. It was then the BBC's own failing that we didn't uncover that fact, and the documentary was aired. It's not good enough, though, is it?
No, because if they asked and didn't receive an answer, are they saying they were given a false answer?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, they knew what a sensitive documentary it was. It was what it was like being a Gazan family from the viewpoint of a child. And knowing it's that sensitive, they should have sussed it out. And you know, there are rumours that some members of the crew knew. I don't know.
Right, let's turn our attention to politics over here. A lot of people getting in touch over this reform issue. Some saying, well, look at what's happening in the Labour Party. Look at all the rows and falling outs there are in the Labour Party. The difference is the Labour Party's got a lot more MPs than Reform. Therefore, this has a bigger impact in parliamentary terms. But Nigel Farage has broken his silence on the row engulfing his party following the suspension of Rupert Lowe.
Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, Farage claims the last election shows that the public really don't like parties that engage in constant infighting, and he's vowed to ensure that all party representatives behave responsibly.
It follows allegations of bullying and physical violence by Mr Lowe, allegations which he strongly denies.
And then, of course, what followed was public criticism of the party's leadership by the MP for Great Yarmouth, which Nigel Farage claims has dented the sense of unity.
Let's talk to political commentator Duncan Barks. I mean, the issue with this is, and we said this yesterday actually as well, is that, yes, all parties have these sort of issues, every single one. The difference is this is not only a party with a small number of MPs, but actually it's got huge public support, but also appears to be topping all the polls at the moment. So it's the perfect storm for having the spotlight on you.
Absolutely. And just to recap, Sunday Telegraph today has got this piece by Nigel Farage saying the Reformers acted responsibly over Rupert Lowe. There's also a piece by Rupert Lowe saying I'm the victim of a witch hunt and I'm completely innocent. Inside the last hour, because a lot of this has been played out on social media, on X and Twitter, Rupert Lowe has said the following. It's been reported in today's Telegraph that sources in the Reform leadership close to Nigel Farage are upset with me because I have been outspoken on the need for a large number of deportations. This is not new information to me. Just so that everyone is crystal clear, I stand by every single word I have said on the subject. So that gets us into this idea that there might be a difference of opinion on policy. Remember, he gave an interview on Thursday to Andrew Pearce, this is Rupert Lowe, where he talked about Farage as well being some kind of messiah figure. So even this morning, inside the last 60 minutes, you've got Rupert Lowe on social media going, this is what I think, I'm not going to apologise for that. And I just think it'll be really interesting to see what Richard Tice says at 9:30 this morning on the Camilla Tominey show.
You can't imagine that Reform leadership would be against large-scale deportations, would you? I mean, it seems to be everything they stand for.
This piece in the Telegraph quite conveniently talks about sources close to Mr Farage. You know, so we don't know, but you're right. If you had to put a lump of money on in a bet, you'd be going, well, I would have thought Reform would be behind the idea of mass deportations for people who illegally come to this country.
Yes, but somebody doesn't feel that he has the right to be saying these things on behalf of Reform anymore.
Clearly that. So it rumbles on, and again, a lot of this has been played out on social media, and as I said, inside the last 60 minutes, that's the latest development.
Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? It's tit for tat already.
It is. And
Farage writes a column in the Telegraph today. Suddenly, he's the MP for Great Yarmouth is having his say
the independent
again now.
MP for Great Yarmouth currently. And if you look at some of the replies who seem to be from Reform supporters, if not members, they just go, enough. You know, can you two just talk about this
shut up.
out of the spotlight, because we're finding this really dispiriting and damaging.
I mean, this is part of the issue, isn't it? That there should have been, and whether it's possibly the fault of Rupert Lowe for raising some of the questions he did in that Mail piece, because that was bound to cause some issues.
Yeah, you've got
even if not with Nigel himself. The speculation amongst everybody else.
You've got to question the timing of why he did that. I mean, there is a line of thinking which is it was a bit of desperation, because he said previously he's spent many times trying to get a meeting with Nigel Farage to talk about stuff like this, and his requests for a meeting have been ignored. So you've got to take that into the mix of what's going on here. But I think it's fair to say when you do a newspaper interview and you're critical of your leader, there's going to be repercussions.
Yes, you know it's going to cause trouble, don't you? And don't you think as well that the politicians here need to put their egos to one side and remember the people who want to vote for them?
Yeah.
We've had so many messages from people who are really distressed. Because they believed that Reform was going to make a difference.
Well, this is it, isn't it?
And now they don't know what to think.
Because Reform have quite successfully pitched themselves as not a typical political party. We're not like the Conservatives. We're not like Labour. And the point you made earlier, Stephen, with only 5 MPs, you've got this story that's dominating things at the moment. You know, it's even eclipsing the fact that polls have come out in the last 48 hours, still showing Reform ahead of all of the other political parties. The caveat with that is other polls have a slightly different result. But the thing that everyone's talking about is this split in the party.
And what's going to be difficult, actually, moving forward is just looking at all of your comments this morning, where literally 50% of you were saying something along the lines of Nigel's the man for the job, reform is Nigel, let's stick with Nigel, and the other half saying, oh, something's not right, Rupert Lowe's the man. That's the problem. Can we talk about the migration issue? Because there's a piece on the Sunday. Now, I haven't seen this.
This is a cracking bit of journalism. It's an investigation by Lottie O'Brien, and it's exclusive on the front page of the Sunday Express. And it's £6.6 billion. That is the cost of what they call asylum seeker support, and it's been revealed.
Let's just hold that up so you can see, because they have splashed it all over the front page. Oh, sorry, which camera shall I hold? There we go.
There's a warning with this, which is your blood pressure might increase over the next 30 seconds when I outline some of the findings. So it's an Express investigation, and we're talking £6.6 billion on asylum seeker and refugee support schemes. What does that mean? That includes trips to the zoo, London Zoo, tennis lessons, also trips to Kew Gardens and Arsenal's Emirates Stadium. It's all part of this idea that it's about integration. I've got another stat for you in a second.
Keep them busy. That will be the argument, is keep them busy or they'll make trouble.
Well, well, that's not what's being said. I mean, the Refugee Council say, well, this is all about not leaving refugees isolated, but I think you strip this down. And so this is a mixture of government and local council funding, right? People will be going, I can't get a GP appointment, there are potholes in the road, I can't get my kid a decent school place, yet people can find money for some of these schemes.
Are these people who are coming here legally or illegally?
Well, they class it as asylum seeker and refugee support scheme, so I think it's probably a mix of both. But it's all about integrating into British life. Now, this is the one that I think most people will find hard to swallow. There's a contract that's worth almost 50 grand, which is for sandwich delivery services. The value
sandwich delivery services.
Yeah, so you get a butty delivered to you.
Well, they've got to be fed.
£4.45 is the value of each lunch, including chicken, egg and mayo and veggie and vegan selections. And just to be fair about this, because some people might be thinking, well, you know, it's on the Labour government's watch. If you dig in deep, the contracts awarded to these companies providing these integration services have been awarded since 2019. So that's both on the watch of the Conservative government and the current Labour government. And I think most GB News viewers will be thinking, hang on a second, I don't mind helping people, but when very basic services provided by my local council or the government are at best patchy and at worst non-existent, how can they find money for this?
When you're cutting pensioners' winter fuel, when you're threatening to do this new taxes on small businesses and farmers, and 10 billion quid, 6.6 billion quid.
Against the backdrop of Rachel Reeves, who keeps banging on about her £22 billion black hole.
You can't blame some people thinking that this government cares more for refugees and asylum seekers than it does for its own citizens.
Indeed.
And I thought that was the first responsibility of any government.
Well, you'd hope so. And this is right across the UK. So there's examples in the London borough of Newham, also Bristol and Hull and elsewhere, where this money's been spent.
Yeah. OK, well, that is a good bit of journalism, that one.
Yes.
All right, Duncan, it's been lovely to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers.
Right, let's find out what the weather's going to give you today. It should be sunny, a little bit more anyway. Here's Craig Snell.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, today, most of us will see another fine and sunny day, and in the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm for the time of year. It's not going to be everywhere, though. The far north of Scotland, we continue with some cloud and rain here, and also very down towards the very far southwest, could just see a few showery outbreaks of rain from time to time. But for a lot of the UK, lots of sunshine around, and in the sunshine, temperatures will really respond quite widely into the high teens across much of England and Wales, and we could see a few spots reaching 20 degrees, that's 68 in Fahrenheit. As we move into the evening, this band of cloud and rain across the far north of Scotland will gradually begin to sink a little bit further southwards, but for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, it will be a very fine end to the day with some late sunshine. Much of England and Wales also very similar, fine end to the weekend to come. Really the exceptions are going to be down towards the very far southwest of England, where again we could just see a few spots of rain to end Sunday. So moving into the nighttime period, the band of rain across Scotland will continue to sink its way a little bit further south. Behind it, much colder air and also quite a brisk breeze developing. But for a lot of the UK, it's going to be a fairly quiet night. Could see some mist and fog form, especially along some North Sea coasts, and in the countryside, it will turn pretty chilly as we start Monday morning. But for a lot of England and Wales, we do start the day fairly bright once any early mist and fog clears, but cloud will begin to bubble up quite widely across the UK during the course of Monday, so much more cloud in the sky compared to the weekend. That band of rain across Scotland will trek its way into parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England as the afternoon goes on. Behind it, much colder. Temperatures really struggling across Scotland, but still reaching the mid-teens across much of England and Wales.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
And now it's time for us to give away money. It's the Great British Giveaway, and it's your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. You'll also get 2 designer watches and a really nice designer bag. If you want to know how to take part, here's how.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, it's been revealed Britain is amongst the hardest hit by the pandemic in terms of the economic bounce back we've had since it all started 5 years ago today. We'll tell you more in a minute.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our hope is that this will have impact to be able to drive connections for those who have been suffering from hearing loss and allow them to experience those special moments.
Okay, so how does the hearing aid feature actually work?
It's really simple, and that is what's so beautiful about the feature. We designed it so it could be used across all age groups, all tech savviness, if you will. You simply take a hearing test right on your iPhone using the AirPods Pro 2. It creates a personalized hearing profile, which then automatically pre-programs the AirPods Pro 2 to work as a hearing assistive device. And so just with the touch of a button, you'll now be able to augment the frequencies where you may need some assistance. And what's beautiful about the hearing test is it's a clinically validated audiogram. So we compared it to what is considered gold standard in the hearing world. And the hearing aid the hearing aid feature basically simply turns on and allows you to use it not just when you're talking with one another, like with another individual, but whether you're using it across phone calls, your media, your entertainment. So it's a really simple experience.
And have you noticed, because this has been rolled out around the world before it's come here to Britain, but have you seen a spike in people realising that they actually have hearing loss as a result of taking the test with this feature?
I can anecdotally share with you that even just in my circle and talking to people sometimes have picked up things that they didn't expect and noticed that they had some hearing issues. What's probably been so impactful is the letters we get from customers. One of the ones that we just got last week was a grandmother who was able to hear her soft-spoken grandchild for the first time by using this. And I think that is what's so special about it. We've already heard from customers around the world who have been able to use it over the past few months, how it's made an impact in their life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News, 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:28 now. Bereaved families and communities will come together today, marking 5 years since the official start of the COVID-19 pandemic, with events taking place across the UK.
The National Day of Reflection was announced by Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy as an opportunity to remember those we lost, as well as the sacrifices that were made.
Well, it comes as it's emerged Britain is amongst those hardest hit by the pandemic, with new analysis showing the UK has had one of the worst economic bounce backs.
I think we can talk now to the infectious disease and public health expert, Dr. Bharat Pankania, who joins us live from Bath. A very good morning to you. It's lovely to see you again. Do you find this surprising that we are one of the worst, if not the worst, country in terms of recovery from COVID-19 and the pandemic and the lockdowns?
Well, it is a clear indicator that we have system problems, and those system problems have been going on for decades. So it isn't surprising that when United Kingdom PLC receives a big blow, it takes us that much longer to recover from it. We've got issues with respect to trade, our healthcare services. We've always run our healthcare services at full capacity, and we found during the pandemic that we had no capacity for increased number of admissions to the healthcare settings. So this is an example of what has been going on for at least 2, 3, 4 decades, that we're running under capacity.
I'd be fascinated to get your view 5 years on, Bharat, because when we must have talked during the pandemic, I mean, almost every week, if not several times a week, really. With this, the benefit of hindsight now, how do you think we handled it all? Did we go about it in the right way? What would you do differently if we were faced with this again?
So, look, as an infectious disease expert, somebody who takes part in emergency preparedness all the time, we saw that when the pandemic arrived, all those systems that we had in place were thrown out of the window, and we started to recreate things that we thought were already in place, like testing and tracing, like contact tracing locally rather than nationally, you know, all that expenses that we made. So my analysis is that whilst we demonstrate that we are preparing, when the real thing comes, it looks like we are pretty unprepared. So we are not fully going round the circle, which is make the plans, test the plans, prepare, and then test them again and be ready. We started afresh when the pandemic arrived, and as a result of ourselves starting afresh, it was very, very disjointed. We were recreating test and trace. We were recreating testing labs. We were recreating extra capacity. And as a result, of course, we had excessively high mortality. And then we've got the denial. So we've had more than one Prime Minister at the inquiry, and both of those Prime Ministers have lost their WhatsApp messages. They don't want to grasp that things didn't go right. And until you are ready to grasp we could have done better. We are the United Kingdom. We are a G7 nation. We got it wrong here. That healing process doesn't start.
I mean, over the years, you must have spoken to so many other people, such as yourself, from other countries, and compared the way different countries were able to cope or not with the pandemic. Do you really think that we are the worst to recover?
Well, you see, with respect to the worst to recover economically, well, we've got Brexit, and as a result of our nearest trading partner, which is Europe, we've taken a huge financial hit. So in terms of finances, it is understandable why the United Kingdom had the pandemic and the consequences of Brexit at the same time. And even before we left the European Union, we were struggling from a healthcare point of view, which is my specialism, and then Brexit happened at the same time. So it doesn't surprise me that from that perspective, we haven't done very well. On the other hand, from where I can talk with more confidence with respect to the excess mortality, morbidity that we've had in the United Kingdom, it is very high compared to, for example, say comparable countries, Germany, France, and only Italy probably had a little bit more than the UK in terms of deaths.
Can I just, I know it all gets very controversial. I could talk to you all morning, Barrett, but do you think we handled things right in terms of lockdowns, in terms of vaccine rollouts, all that sort of thing? Because there's always talk of countries like Sweden where lockdown wasn't really enforced in the same way. And would we do that in the same way again?
I don't think we've got the stamina for those extensive long lockdowns. So look, you know, the most important key point to understand is this. If we had started earlier, harder, faster, then we would have had a much shorter lockdown. So those extensive lockdowns, which is so unfortunate and so damaging, are the consequences of Boris Johnson, your government. You were slow to act in the first instance. If you had acted fast, hard, early, we would have had shorter periods of lockdown, and definitely not those lockdowns and then open again, and then lockdowns and then open again. And you know, consequences like eat out to help out, all of those measures, unscientific, led to repeated longer lockdowns and, of course, deaths too. So in answer to your question, we really mismanaged this. Now, in answer to the other question which you mentioned about Sweden, all that, so let me answer it like this. The demography between Sweden and the United Kingdom is different. We've got a lot more vulnerable people. So we had to act in a different way for our bigger, larger, more vulnerable population. Also, our density is a lot greater. Now, in terms of some of those draconian lockdown measures, they were ridiculous. So, for example, if you wanted to go out for a long, long walk all day on your own, what's wrong with that? And I've always said that. What's wrong with that? Whereas we were made to say you can only have a few hours of exercise every day, otherwise you will stay put in your house. Well, that's very damaging mental health-wise, physical health-wise, etc. So some of those things of lockdown were also, I would agree with you, excessively draconian and unnecessary.
All right, we've got to leave it there. We are out of time. Barrett Pankonia, really good to talk to you, as always.
Yes.
Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you. And of course, never mind just the economic bounce back, but the mental health legacy is enormous, isn't it? How would we act if it ever happened again?
Quicker, faster, harder, and then it wouldn't go on as long. Sounds better to me. All right, look, Aidan's got the sport in a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christys here with an exclusive opportunity just for you, our incredible GB News viewers. we're giving you the opportunity to win a VIP studio tour right here at GB News HQ. Plus, you'll also get to meet yours truly. It's easy to enter. Just head to gbnews.com/community competition and follow the easy steps. Don't miss out. Enter now, and I'll see you soon at GB News. Full T's and C's apply.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, Egypt has discovered, well, I think it was a British and Egyptian team actually, finding the historic discovery, the long-lost tomb of King Thutmose II, the last of the lost tombs of the kings of ancient Egypt's 18th dynasty.
Yes, and it's the first royal Egyptian tomb to be discovered since King Tutankhamun's final resting place was found in 1922.
A very exciting discovery, and here to tell us all about it is the historian and author Martin Whittock. Martin, the first royal tomb since Tutankhamun.
Indeed, indeed, and identified as King Thutmose II. Other pronunciations are also available. And as you say, it's the last of the lost tombs of Egypt's 18th dynasty. They ruled between about 1550 BC and 1292 BC. It had been known before this tomb since 2022 as Tomb C4, as its occupant was then unknown. But what's happened now is parts of alabaster vessels have been found which have inscriptions bearing the name of Pharaoh Thutmose II and identifying him as the deceased king, along, interestingly, with the name of his wife, Hatshepsut. Now, she's an interesting woman because after he died, she ruled as pharaoh in her own right, one of only 2 women to do so in ancient Egyptian history. Now, the mummy of King Thutmose II was actually discovered during the 19th century at a nearby archaeological site known as Deir el-Bahari Kashet, and it's thought it was moved there after it had been looted by tomb raiders centuries ago. So the tomb is not going to give us the kind of treasures that we associate with Tutankhamun, I'm afraid, but it shows us the architecture of these royal tombs.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sports time now. Here's Aidan McGee. What are we starting with?
Let's start with a bit of Six Nations. Yes, exactly. I mean, I think we have to doff our cap to France this morning because they went to Ireland and pulled off an absolutely outstanding result. I mean, I sat here yesterday saying that I fully expected Ireland as sort of narrow favourites to go and press home their advantage and then finish off with a flourish last week and complete what we know as the Grand Slam, which means that you win every match en route to winning the Six Nations. But as well as chasing that particular achievement, they'd already won the Triple Crown, which meant they'd beaten, this is Ireland, of course, they'd beaten Wales, Scotland and England, and they were looking to win the Six Nations for a third successive time, which doesn't happen very often in Ireland's history. So France had it all to do. They lost to England, of course, a few weeks ago, having missed chances in that game to win. And they won yesterday. They were I think, 8-6 at half-time. Ireland turned that round and were leading early in the second half. And then France just rattled off 34 unanswered points. They looked absolutely imperious. It came at a cost because the guy widely considered to be the best rugby player in the world, Antoine Dupont, suffered quite a bad ACL injury, it looked like, and it was quite, his coach described it as a reprehensible incident. It was Ty Burn who was
Did you actually see what happened, or was it in the scrum and you couldn't see?
No, it was in the scrum. It was in the ruck. It was in a ruck. Yeah, there were replays of it. It did look quite bad, but it's so hard to tell. It's such a rough game. You can't. And to be honest, in most sports, you can't. How can you prove intent? It's very, very difficult to do that. You can look as if someone's intended something, but it could just be a freak accident. So that's that was a negative point for France there. But if they win next week, quite simply, they win the Six Nations and they're up against Scotland, of course.
Yeah. Where does this Where does this leave England?
Well, look, the door is slightly ajar.
Got a match. Is tomorrow?
No, today. Today is Italy.
So they've got to win today and they've got to win next.
Yes,
yes,
but
3 o'clock today.
They need bonus points, and that means scoring 4 or more tries. And England don't score many tries. That's the thing. They're a kicking team. They like to get it up and under. They like to score points. So that much the same as they did in 2003 when they won the World Cup. But fundamentally, if France were to lose next week and England were to win, England can claim the Six Nations that way. Yeah, exactly. So it's look. At least it's wide open. At least it's open.
Yeah.
At least it's going into the final weekend. It hasn't been quite as processional as we saw in previous tournaments. And we've seen some great rugby. It was a magnificent game yesterday, and England should get the job done against Italy today at Twickenham. And if they do, as I say, it goes into a final week, and that's what we all wanted.
Who's playing in the Premier League today?
Today, well, Anne's favourites, Bournemouth, are at Tottenham at 2 o'clock. Chelsea face Leicester City. Now, Leicester are one of the worst teams in the league. They're going to go back down to the Championship, I would think. And so Chelsea have a chance, if they win that game at home at Stamford Bridge, to leapfrog Manchester City and go into the Champions League places, which keeps it interesting. That's the only thing, really, Anne, that's keeping us alive in the Premier League. We kind of... Liverpool at home and hosed at 16 points clear, albeit played 2 games more than Arsenal, who played today at 4:30 at Old Trafford, of course. And the bottom 3, it looks like the 3 teams who came up from the Championship are going to go straight back down. So what's left is who's going to get into the Champions League places, which is always quite interesting. But again, in contrast to what we've seen in the Six Nations, the Premier League looking as if we're not even mid-March yet, and it looks as if most of the issues within that competition have been settled, and I don't think that's good for the sport.
I was looking at a piece in the newspaper about they've been interviewing waiters and waitresses about what it's like to serve celebrities. Are they generous? Are they nice to get on with? Do they leave a good tip? Things like that. And there's this one person who says, I used to work in a pub in Manchester. I think this person's American. I used to work in a pub in Manchester during the United's 90s to 00s heyday. I met many of the United footballers in there, including Paul Scholes, Cristiano Ronaldo and Roy Keane. They were all great guys. Tipping isn't as forced a thing as it is in the USA, but they bought a round of drinks for everyone in the pub and then left £10 each for all of the bar staff.
Fantastic.
Isn't that nice to hear?
It is, yeah.
Good news.
Yeah, they're more generous than I am with tipping, I'll tell you.
Oh,
well, they can afford it.
Yeah,
But that's not relevant, actually. It's whether or not you think about it, and they did.
Yeah, true. Well, I lived in Manchester around that time, and it's quite a close sort of
bought you a drink,
community.
did they?
No, they didn't know, but I could provide my own, don't worry.
Right, Aidan, it's been good to see you.
You
Thank
too.
you very much indeed. Let's just have a quick look at some of the top European holiday destinations, what the weather's doing there today.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Low pressure still dominates western parts of the Mediterranean. Outbreaks of showers, heavy rain, some strong winds as well. Temperatures a little below average for the time of year. Through Monday, showers across the west, some longer spells of rain, Spain and Portugal there. Showers across into Italy, temperatures in the mid-teens. But the best of the dry weather across Greece, across into Turkey as well. Plenty of sunny spells here. And the outlook for is it to improve a little with temperatures rising too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
I do think that there is extremities in how this has been approached with, you can't eat kebabs anymore. The Climate Change Committee isn't talking about banning meat. It's talking about reducing meat, perhaps having some incentives for plant-based diets. It's talking about doing small changes, not phasing out everything, doing small changes to move to a net zero future, a more sustainable future.
How can me not having a large donor combat, I don't know, China opening one coal-fired power station a week? Come on, this is pointless.
Well, there is other things that have been advised beyond just, reducing our meat consumption. There's things around the tax around flying and aviation, producing less fossil fuel imports and switching to more renewable power, upgrading the grid. There's a lot of other advisories collectively
that moves us towards a net zero future. There is a few, of course, we can go down the route of, they can't eat the kebab anymore, but there's far more other things at play than just the kebab meat.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump, that man again, is just laughing at all this. Drill, baby, drill. You're not telling me that his cabinet are going to chow down on some quinoa. This is a red meat country leading the way, and if we had half a brain about us, we'd be drilling ourselves.
I come from an energy industry background. I work for a data intelligence company, Mapstand, as well. And what we are seeing is that what's happening in America is actually quite short-term thinking. It's not long-term thinking. Whereas in places in China, you're seeing a lot of innovation and green innovation because there is a huge economic opportunity.
Yeah, because they're selling it all to the West and polluting their atmosphere. We're offshoring our carbon footprint, and they're selling the solar panels back to us because we're the mugs.
We're also able to be the producers and also change our own energy so that we can also compete.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Papers time at 8:48 with Andy Jones and Jennifer Powers. Morning again, you two. Jennifer, let's start with you and the Sunday Times. What's Australia doing in regard to social media?
Well, this is a big story. Australia is preparing to become the first country in the world to ban social media for under 16s.
Hooray!
Hooray, yeah. And this comes on the back of a private member's bill, which had its second reading in Parliament this week, called the Safer Phones Bill, which was brought by a Labour backbencher called Josh McAllister. And he's really leading the charge with a lot of the new intake of the MPs in this Parliament to raise the issue because we've had the Online Safety Act, which is finally being brought in and implemented this year. But there are huge issues with smartphone use and the access that those phones give to social media. And it's interesting to see that Australia is really driving straight at this problem and looking to take real decisive action.
How are they going to enforce it? That's what I don't understand.
There are a couple of different ways. There's actually a small British company that is been tasked with reviewing the different technological options. So there's something called age verification, which is why we use a document like a passport or a driver's license. Obviously not always useful for children. There's age assurance, where they're able to do facial recognition and things like that. And then there's age estimation, which is on behaviours online, which again, if you're just going online, you don't always have that built-up catalogue of activity. However, if we can create the most addictive, lethal forms of social media, then I'm sure the best minds in tech can also come up with ways to ascertain who is online. I mean, let's not pretend that they can decide how to target us for advertising, but they can't know how old we are.
Yeah.
So this is a really welcome move, and actually is in stark contrast to the government, who has declined to back the meat that's in this Safer Phones Bill, and it's come in a very watered down version to Parliament. So wonderful first step, but the UK could be doing so much more.
Yeah, I mean, you used to have to invade a country to change its culture. Now you can just launch a social media app.
That's
And
right.
we know about TikTok's ties to China, and they're buying all of our education structures as well, same as Qatar and a lot of other countries. Of course, you can do so much damage to a nation's culture. We see that with TikTok without even firing a shot.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, good on Australia. I hope we follow suit.
It'll be, yes, so do I. Do you know, I think also there may be some young people who actually will welcome that.
Yeah.
Because more and more you're hearing from young people themselves who are fed up with the pressure of having to be active on social media, but they do it because their friends do it. If it were banned across the board for their age group, I think there would be a lot of relief.
And you're absolutely right. All the surveys of teens and young adults say that they wish they'd had a childhood without social media. And so I think politicians in this country are really behind where parents are on this issue.
They think it's a matter of free speech, but, it's not.
No. No.
Is it? It's just a matter of safeguarding your children.
Yeah, and we're teaching kids things in schools, and parents are doing their best at home, and then they're going into online echo chambers where they've been taught all sorts of madness. Saw a 17-year-old boy got hold of a shotgun, shot his mum, sister, and brother. He spent his whole time online looking at all sorts of. I can't even say the things you're looking at on a family show. Absolutely appalling. No control of her youth.
All right, Andy, why is the BBC desperate, absolutely chomping at the bit to employ me?
Oh, well, indeed. As someone from Birmingham who went to state school, and I know that you have ties with the North as well yourself.
Ties?
Well, you are.
Born and bred.
Born and bred. All right. BBC chairman Samir Shah, who, to be fair to him, has spent his whole life working in BBC News. He actually knows how to make BBC News programmes rather than some of these, business types that have infected the place over recent years. He said that the BBC needs more northern working class views, like yours, Stephen, to shatter the BBC echo chamber. He said there's too many people at the BBC who are going after what they think are the correct views rather than the views of Britain. BBC have been hinting at this for quite a long time. There's been a bit of moving of furniture, but I don't think they've done enough. I mean, the BBC views diversity in terms of colour, ethnicities, gender and sexuality. It doesn't view it as a diversity of views. And what's been happening at the BBC, and I've worked at the BBC on and off over sort of 15 years, is diversity to them is getting people of different colours, but then these people went to private schools. They went to Oxbridge, and then they're taught. They're talking about white privilege. And I think, well, hang on a minute. I mean, you had a far better education than I ever did. And I think the BBC is realising it's behind the ball here, and it has to get different views in. Otherwise, it's losing views. And look where they're going. They're going to magnificent GB News, where their voices are listened.
But I tell you what, while the BBC says that, or at least is beginning to recognise that, they've also, haven't they? It's in one of the papers today. They're hiring a sort of head of diversity person. At an astonishingly high
6 figures,
salary,
180,000.
And you can only imagine what sort of mistakes that person's going to do all over again.
Walking around saying that we need.
Yes, we made the wrong choices, perhaps, if we were looking to get on. But no, I think that the BBC is recognising, I think, perhaps a lot later than the rest of us did, that it is about diversity of thought.
Yes.
And that if you can't have diversity of thought, you can't really develop a society which is able to discuss the issues that matter. And, their programming and their news content are a little bit myopic. And so it's a welcome initiative. Let's hope they follow through.
Well, fingers crossed. Mind you, it's good news for us if they don't, frankly, so I don't know why.
Well, that's true, yes. Yeah.
Right, you two, it's been a real pleasure to see you this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's have a look at the weather for you with Craig.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, today, most of us will see another fine and sunny day, and in the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm for the time of year. It's not going to be everywhere, though. The far north of Scotland, we continue with some cloud and rain here, and also very down towards the very far southwest, could just see a few showery outbreaks of rain from time to time. But for a lot of the UK, lots of sunshine around, and in the sunshine, temperatures will really respond quite widely into the high teens across much of England and Wales, and we could see a few spots reaching 20 degrees, that's 68 in Fahrenheit. As we move into the evening, this band of cloud and rain across the far north of Scotland will gradually begin to sink a little bit further southwards, but for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, it will be a very fine end to the day with some late sunshine. Much of England and Wales also very similar, fine end to the weekend to come. Really the exceptions are going to be down towards the very far southwest of England, where again we could just see a few spots of rain to end Sunday. So moving into the nighttime period, that band of rain across Scotland will continue to sink its way a little bit further south. Behind it, much colder air and also quite a brisk breeze developing. But for a lot of the UK, it's going to be a fairly quiet night. Could see some mist and fog form, especially along some North Sea coasts, and in the countryside, it will turn pretty chilly as we start Monday morning. But for a lot of England and Wales, we do start the day fairly bright once any early mist and fog clears, but cloud will begin to bubble up quite widely across the UK during the course of Monday, so much more cloud in the sky compared to the weekend. That band of rain across Scotland will trek its way into parts of Northern Ireland and
northern England as the afternoon goes on. Behind it, much, much colder. Temperatures really struggling across Scotland, but still reaching the mid-teens across much of England and Wales.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Could Doctor Who be for the chop after more than 60 years? Well, here to explain why there's a lot of rumour, a buzz about this story is the GB News entertainment editor, Alex Davies. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
What on earth is going on?
Well, this has all sort of come around because reports have emerged that the lead actor, Ncuti Gatwa, is planning on leaving. He's only been there for 2 years, but apparently he's already eyeing up the exit door. He wants to reportedly set up a new life in LA. He's got countless Hollywood opportunities lined up for him, according to reports. And the reports are also suggesting his team aren't too fond of some of the woke storylines that have emerged in the last few years. The series has come under fire a number of times. There's been several storylines that have been criticised for pushing certain narratives. They cast a black actor as Isaac Newton, for one. There are other examples, including misgendering aliens.
Do aliens have gender?
Well, you'd be surprised, apparently. There's one called a Meep that David Tennant, who briefly reprised his role before Ncuti, he got the Meep, their gender, wrong and was pulled up about it by a trans character.
Just very forced, it seems. Very forced. Oh, we need to get in the gender nouns and the pronouns. But there was also a bit of heat just for having a female doctor, wasn't there? Jodie Whittaker.
There was, but I feel like that's always going to get heat. When you take a fictional character, a fictional institution, which has been white men predominantly, and you put something that goes against that, you're going to get attention. This one in particular, like I say, with these sort of storylines, has garnered more attention than most.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning to you. Nigel Farage breaks his silence on the row ripping through reform.
He admits that the feud has dented the sense of unity within the party.
But it comes as insiders say Rupert Lowe is the biggest threat to Nigel Farage, but it begs the question, can the party recover?
Another week of record border crossings and a new warning today as a Palestinian asylum seeker who called on God to kill all Jews is picked up by Border Force crossing the Channel on Thursday. But we don't know what's happened to him because the Home Office can't confirm whether or not they arrested him.
There's a wake-up call for Whitehall. Reports the government is set to introduce performance-related pay and an exit process for poor performers in the civil service.
The King's message to the Commonwealth. He praises its ability to bring people together in uncertain times.
Britain is amongst those hardest hit by the pandemic. 5 years since the COVID-19 outbreak, new analysis shows the UK has had one of the worst economic bounce backs.
And who will be crowned the King or Queen of Crufts? It's the final day of the world's largest dog show.
Good morning. The sun will be shining once again today for most of us, but a change is on the way next week, turning much colder. Find out all the details a little later.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I've never really been into Crofts, but I've never had a dog before.
Ah.
And it does change your attitude a little
You
bit.
ought to watch it this afternoon.
Should do.
It's very good fun.
It's the idea there's nothing quite like, nothing gives you as much joy as seeing your dog having a nice time.
Yes, and most of them really do seem to do that there. I think Crofts has gone through a lot of criticism in the past for overbreeding and all the rest of it, but I do think they're very intent now on doing things in the ring, as it were, where the dogs look as though they're really enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
And those dogs yesterday, it was fascinating to watch, the agility thing and the way that some of the dogs were so thrilled with how they'd done. They barked at every jump.
Oh, did they?
And that's the trouble is that takes off a second almost because the dog stops and goes, ah, and it was such fun. You could see the character of the dogs shining through.
Oh, you see, that's just lovely.
Yeah.
And then when they do that, who cares if they don't win?
Oh, no, it doesn't matter at all. And you could hear the laughter from people just watching and applause for the occasional dog that just seemed to be having a great time and didn't care about the time.
See, stuff like that's very nice.
Yeah, it was. It was
brings
smashing.
a smile to your face, which you may need if you're one of the Reform MPs this morning.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage has broken his silence on the row that's engulfed Reform following the suspension of Rupert Lowe.
He's written today in the Sunday Telegraph, it's on the front page, and he claims the last election shows that the public don't like parties that engage in constant infighting. And he's vowed to ensure that all party representatives behave responsibly.
Well, it follows allegations of bullying and physical violence by Mr Lowe, allegations which he strongly denies.
And then what followed was public criticism of the party's leadership by the MP for Great Yarmouth, which Nigel Farage claims has dented their sense of unity.
Well, let's head to Westminster and talk to Camilla Tominey ahead of her show at 9:30 this morning. There's so much going on with this, Camilla. What we really need is to hear from someone senior in the party.
And we will be doing exactly that because Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader, will be joining me on the Camilla Tominey show this morning. So please do stay tuned for that. So much to ask him. I mean, this is the curious thing. The timing of all this does raise eyebrows. Rupert Lowe gives that interview to our colleague Andrew Pearce, writing for the Daily Mail, saying that he is questioning whether Reform is still too much of a protest party, questioning whether Nigel Farage has got what it takes to be PM. And then suddenly we have these allegations levelled against him by the party chairman, Zia Youssef, and Lee Anderson. Then Rupert Lowe hits back saying, these aren't credible claims, I'm completely innocent, I wasn't expecting this statement to be made. Even the independently appointed KC has questioned the timing. We now have Nigel hitting back in the Sunday Telegraph, saying that he wouldn't have been forgiven if he had allowed this to fester in private. But it all begs the question, is there wisdom in airing so much dirty linen in public? If Nigel Farage can't keep 4 other MPs in check, how on earth is he to cope if Reform does win hundreds of seats at the next general election? Question marks posed by Rupert Lowe about whether Nigel Farage is too messianic and has a problem delegating. These are all very interesting questions to be asking of Richard Tice. And what does it mean for the future of the party? Because depending on the outcome of this investigation, obviously Mr Lowe is protesting his innocence. Is it going to end up sparking a by-election? Would Reform win or lose it? It's the last thing the party needs, as Nigel Farage is laser-focused on these local elections in May. So terrible timing. We will be exploring every different avenue of it with Richard Tice.
And, of course, one of the points that Nigel Farage himself said in his column today is that the public don't like to vote for a fractured party, a party where there's so much infighting. We've seen it in other parties in the past, haven't we? And, of course, there is a danger they will lose some votes.
Yes, and maybe even some members. I mean, I wrote 2 different pieces on Friday. There's already a degree of scepticism about Nigel Farage's lack of support for Ukraine and this idea that he's drunk too much of the MAGA Kool-Aid. And maybe his relationship with President Trump has clouded his judgment on how to assess what Trump and Vance have been saying about President Zelensky. So that was already in the background. Now this. And there is an irony there, because everyone thought, well, at least Reform all believe in the same thing. It's not going to be like the Conservatives when you've got a left and right of the party at war with each other, or indeed like Labour, you know, the left and then the soft left constantly having wars. You would have thought with Reform, they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, so they should be a nest of singing birds. In fact, like most political parties, they're now fighting like a nest of vipers. So we will drill into all of that. We are looking at other matters, though, so I'll be speaking to Pat McFadden, who, Angela Rayner won't like me saying this, but is kind of Keir Starmer's de facto deputy. Be talking to him about wanting to cut the civil service. Well, by how many? Talking to him about other Labour policies. I'll also be speaking to Alexei Goncharenko. He's a Ukrainian opposition MP to Zelensky, to find out what he thinks about the peace negotiations. And Chris Filt, the Shadow Home Secretary, will be with us to talk about, get this, the Conservatives' plans to bring down immigration.
Ah, well, that would be interesting. Well, I mean, I tell you, that's going to be interesting on the back of what we've seen on the Mail on Sunday today, and it's interesting what Pat McFadden's going to have to say about this. This idea that someone who's busy chanting "Death to all Jews" has landed on our shores, brought on shore by Border Force, and is now somewhere in the country.
I know, we can't seem to pin down the Home Office on where this guy is. As you have been reporting this morning, made some absolutely horrific remarks about literally killing Jews, posed up with AK-47s, was seen to be a member of Hamas in the past. My understanding is that he left before the October the 7th attacks, but he is very much aligned with that kind of terrorist thinking. Now on British shores, where is he? Does the Home Office even know? I will certainly be asking Pat McFadden that question.
OK, Camilla, lots to get through in your show. It's going to be quite a watch today. We'll see you at 9:30.
Yeah. Fascinating, isn't it? I wonder how Pat McFadden as well feels about the fact that so much of the media at the moment is talking about Reform's hopes for being the next government, and that we're only, you know, shortly in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the headline should not be remotely pointing in that direction.
No.
8 months into a new government.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should still be on the honeymoon phase. We talk about a short honeymoon. It lasted about a week.
If that, yes.
Ah, dear me. Right. The King is going to hail the Commonwealth's power to unite nations in friendship during his annual Commonwealth Day address tomorrow.
He's going to emphasise enduring strength in uncertain times and celebrate differences as a source of strength in a speech at Westminster Abbey.
Also attending alongside the King will be the Queen, of course, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Princess Royal and the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester.
Let's find out more from former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray. Lovely to see you, Charles. Yes, it's going to be quite a day. And if he's stressing that it's about the Commonwealth uniting people in uncertain times, my goodness, the King has quite a problem on his hands, doesn't he, with Trump and Zelensky. And apparently Donald Trump feeling a bit miffed that having been extended an invitation for a second state visit, then the King goes and meets Zelensky, which Trump apparently has said to his aides has rather taken the shine off the specialness of his invitation.
Yeah, there are a number of problems, and as well is the Canada problem, because we've got Trump, who's now saying that he wants Canada as a 51st state. Now, everyone thought this was a joke at the beginning, but he is insisting that this is something that he wants. And, you know, I think we have to be very, very careful on this, that Trump is doing exactly the same as Putin is doing with Ukraine, except he's not yet launched any armed insurrection in Canada to force them to do that. So that's something the world has got to keep an eye on. And you're right as well, there are all these sort of problems. We've got Trump due to come over here, although I suspect that is going to be put on the back burner while the talks go on with Ukraine and Russia. And we'll just have to wait and see. But it is the day itself is important because the King obviously missed it last year, a personal appearance. He did a video message. So he's back in action again today, as is the Princess of Wales with other members of the royal family. So it's a good message that they're putting out, that together we thrive. And Trump really needs to understand that we are together. We are 56 nations that are together, and Canada joined the Commonwealth in 1931, 3 years after the Commonwealth was set up.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, the messaging, as you say, is very clear in all of this. But this goes to show what power the King actually has. I mean, I know we call it soft power, sure, but we're reaching a point where actually it may actually be getting a little bit firmer.
Well, it is. I mean, he, like his late mother, the Commonwealth is very, very important to him, and it should be as well important to this country. It is a group of nations that, that get on well together, that have trade agreements with each other. And it is a message that we can work together without having the sort of Russia Ukraine scenario, everything that happens in the Middle East and everything else. So it shows that we can work together. And the King himself, I mean, he's been a diplomat, and he's been trained as a diplomat for many, many years, and by the best teacher, his mother.
Yes, so we can have faith at least that he'll be able to handle it quite coolly. I tell you what, on Commonwealth Day, he'll be very pleased to hear the announcement from Jeff Bezos, who now owns the 007 franchise, because they have made it very clear that the next James Bond, despite people, wondering whether they're going to go very woke, the next James Bond will be male and will be from either Britain or the Commonwealth.
That'd be great. I mean, as long as we don't get another woke James Bond, I'll be more than happy. You should put yourself down for it, Stephen.
Do you reckon? Well, you could. If I do, you can be my Q. How about that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm here with all the new technology.
Brilliant stuff. But really good to see you as always.
And you take care.
Thanks very much indeed.
Yeah. Yes, apparently there were lots of rumours swirling around that, oh my goodness, now Amazon's got hold of the 007 franchise. What are they going to do with it? Could it be a woman? Could it be absolutely anything or anyone you can imagine? But apparently the deal that the Broccolis, who owned the franchise before, made when they sold the franchise was that Bond would always be male and British. But it's interesting they've mentioned the Commonwealth. Yeah.
It's got to be Henry Cavill. I'm going to be gutted if it's not Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Got my heart set on that now. I just think he's got the age, he's got the looks, he's got the mannerisms to pull that off. From Superman to James Bond. It'd be great.
It would be good.
And he could do it for the next 10, 15 years and he'd still be sort of young enough to carry it off. It'd be brilliant.
Who's your favourite Bond?
Well, I thought Daniel Craig was fantastic. However, you go back to your sort of first Bond, it's like your first Doctor, isn't it? And that was Roger Moore for me. I just thought I know it was very comedy back then.
It was. It was much more light-hearted, wasn't
it? He was so good. I used to love going to see the Bonds when they came out.
Yeah, I liked Pierce Brosnan best, probably. But I agree with you about Roger Moore. He just had that swagger about him that was
fantastic.
So good.
Fantastic. Right, should we give money away?
Oh, it's the Great British Giveaway time. Your chance to win £17,777 in tax-free cash. You'll also get 2 designer watches and a designer bag. So if you want to look and feel the part for spring, here's how to take part.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Now, who's going to be top dog at Crufts? Well, we'll try and get an inkling for you from our reporter who's there in a moment.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Today is the last day of Crufts, which can mean only one thing. It's time for Best in Show. Something like 24,000 dogs take part from all over the world. That's what staggered me when I was watching it yesterday. There were animals from all over. Anyway, our West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson, is there.
In front of us now, over the IAMs and the spread.
Days of fierce competition in every shape and size. This year, more than 24,000 dogs from 223 different breeds have all been gunning for Best in Show, but only one can be the winner. as Bill Lambert from the Kennel Club explains.
Best in Show is the culmination of 4 days of competitions at Crufts, where the 20,000 dogs that are here to be entered in the show actually get whittled down to the final 7. The dog that wins is that dog that's got that little bit extra, that bit of star quality, that bit of personality that really stands out. Anyone that competes at Crufts, it's the very best coming together, and it's the one show that everyone wants to win.
Best in Show has been awarded for 86 years, and last year the Australian Shepherd Viking took the top prize. Co-owner Melanie Raymond describes what it was like to win.
Amazing. It's something we always dream of winning, and he's just the ultimate show dog, and he just loves it. It's not just a one-show wonder, it's a continual life plan. They're athletes, these dogs, so they have to be, have to go through a regime of being well looked after and cared for.
This year's competition will once again be tough, with Jack Russell Anna stealing the show on Thursday night to make it through to the final 7.
There's going to be a huge cheer. The Jack Russell Terrier has taken the Terrier.
What a popular winner this is here.
With over 130,000 visitors at Crufts this year, its popularity remains strong. But what is it that keeps people coming back?
As someone who loves dogs, it's just the place to be, really, isn't it?
If it's to do with dogs, it's here and it's fabulous.
It's an amazing way to really show all the different quirkinesses of all the different types of breed that you wouldn't even dream of. She's a Quaker Honja, and you won't come across that just in your normal neighbourhood.
Everyone that we have met, whether it's groomers or people showing or just people here for a day out, they've been so lovely, so complimentary as well for us, for the treats, and to see the dogs as well.
It's the biggest dog show in the world, that's definitely, and it's for me, it's a way of showing how you can work your dog, because that's all started. We started to work the dogs, and they do a good job for us.
The time for final touches is over. Who can deliver a winning performance? At Best in Show tonight, there can only be one top dog. Jack Carson, GB News, Birmingham.
Now, our Rex won Best in Show.
What show?
Well, not Crufts, no. It was
it a local show?
It was just it was a local show at the rugby club.
Yeah.
And he won Best in Show.
Well, I should think so. He's a very good-looking dog.
He was, yeah.
Adrian says, my favourite Bond was Sean Connery. Yes, you must never forget him.
Sean, he was legendary.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
You can't go wrong with a Sean Connery. AP agrees with me. Henry Cavill should be the next Bond. Gareth says, I'm a big fan of Henry Cavill, but he may not want it. Oh, I think he would. Set him up for life.
You'd be daft to turn it down.
You couldn't turn it down.
Malcolm says, I think Stephen would be better as a Bond villain.
Oh, that'd be a fun role.
It would. You could have your pussycat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah, it'd be quite fun to be a Bond villain, to be fair. But I like the outfits. I like the Bond outfits. I like a decent
but the villains' outfits are quite good as well. You sit in a big, luxurious armchair stroking a big white cat and you can wear whatever you fancy. You would be a good Bond villain. There's something about you.
Oh, sneaky. Sneaky. Yeah, I'd have to have a fancy name, though.
We'll think of one, shall we? Something we can work on all week.
Yes, yeah, we'll have it ready for next weekend. Right, it's very nearly it from us today. It's been a busy old day today, but there's lots. I tell you what's going to be worth staying up for Camilla. The show's next.
Yes,
it's Richard Tice, which is going to be fascinating. I hope it's a good long interview to find out exactly what is going on with reform. Doing so well in the polls, but then this internal
and how quickly they can recover, because surely they have to.
Yeah. Anyway, that is it from us for today. I'm back on Tuesday, actually.
Hard worker. He's a hard worker.
6 days next week. Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. Well, today, most of us will see another fine and sunny day, and in the sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm for the time of year. It's not going to be everywhere, though. The far north of Scotland, we continue with some cloud and rain here, and also very down towards the very far southwest, could just see a few showery outbreaks of rain from time to time. But for a lot of the UK, lots of sunshine around, and in the sunshine, temperatures will really respond quite widely into the high teens across much much of England and Wales, and we could see a few spots reaching 20 degrees, that's 68 in Fahrenheit. As we move into the evening, this band of cloud and rain across the far north of Scotland will gradually begin to sink a little bit further southwards, but for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland it will be a very fine end to the day with some late sunshine. Much of England and Wales also very similar, fine end to the weekend to come. Really the exceptions are going to be down towards the very far southwest of England, where again we could just see a few spots of rain to end Sunday. So moving into the nighttime period, the band of rain across Scotland will continue to sink its way a little bit further south. Behind it, much colder air and also quite a brisk breeze developing. But for a lot of the UK, it's going to be a fairly quiet night. Could see some mist and fog form, especially along some North Sea coasts, and in the countryside it will turn pretty chilly as we start Monday morning. But for a lot of England and Wales, we do start the day fairly bright once any early mist and fog clears, but cloud will begin to bubble up quite widely across the UK during the course of Monday, so much more cloud in the sky compared to the weekend. That band of rain across Scotland will trek its way into parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England as the afternoon goes on. Behind it, much colder. Temperatures really struggling across Scotland, but still reaching the mid-teens across much of England and Wales.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.